difficulties.
Well, here's the deal. We have to
Okay.
so
7:10.
it's not like.
Great. Now that all the council members are present, I call to order the June 26th meeting of the City of West Sacramento City Council, West Sacramento Redevelopment Agency, and Finance Authority. We will begin with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we live, work, learn, and commune is the original homelands of the indigenous people of West Sacramento who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We acknowledge and we thank the original inhabitants who have occupied, maintained, and secured this place and who still exist on this land. We respect and celebrate the many diverse indigenous peoples still connected to this land on which we gather. Council met in closed session, review the two agenda items listed. Mr. City Attorney, would you please provide a report?
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, the council met in closed session for the two items of litigation listed on your agenda. No reportable action was taken.
Right, thank you. And today we have a group who will be receiving a proclamation. And I would like for them to, please stand and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. As is noted in our agenda, City Council is prohibited by state law from discussing or taking any action on items that are brought under item 1 for public comment. But it provides an important opportunity for a public forum. Can you hear me?
Volume.
I can't hear. Okay. I'll speak a little louder. I'll probably yell into it. So under item 1 for public comment, it provides an important opportunity for a public forum. The public is given an opportunity at this time to address City Council on issues not listed on the agenda. And we do ask that anyone wishing to address the council on this or any other item this evening to please fill out a request to speak card that is in the corner and return it to our clerk. And we accept the request to speak cards up to the conclusion of the reading of the staff report on any particular agenda item. Once the staff report has been read, we open the item up for public comment, and clerk will announce your name for you to walk to the podium to speak. Now, in front of the clerk, there is a timer to ensure that everyone has a chance to be heard. We ask that all comments be limited to the specified number of minutes. Also, in front of the clerk is an analog flip chart, which indicates which agenda item the council is currently considering. We also recognize that for some, speaking in public can cause anxiety, so we request that there be no applause or boos, catcalls, or other demonstrations. Furthermore, so that we may maintain civil discourse, here in the chambers, we ask that those in attendance and those who address the City Council abide by the Code of Conduct posted on the wall and not speak in loud, threatening, offensive, abusive, or other disrespectful language that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting. Now, this brings us to item 1, presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the council. Each person has 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
Yes, ma'am. Danny Langford.
Good evening. So as many of you know by now, if somebody doesn't say something completely truthful at a meeting, I'm going to bring it to your attention. At the Planning Commission meeting on June 6th, this was what was said to the community.
Is there speeding? Is there traffic? Yes, currently there have been incidents of speeding down Mojave, down Stonegate. Those are the neighbors of these folks that are here that
Langford?
are speeding. We have on a
Getting
number
to
of
the point.
occasions asked the
Please
police
listen.
department to go out there and drop a trailer. Our trailers
I think it's really hard for me to tune into a recording.
I'm sorry, what?
It's really hard for me to tune into a recording. Can you paraphrase for me what's being said?
Okay, so Mr. McCoy said that we put, because some of us had complained about the traffic on Davis Road, Mr. McCoy got up and told the commissioners that we put trailers out, our police department puts trailers out that have cameras and radar. My husband and I have both spoken to the West Sac PD because I knew this wasn't true. There are trailers that have capabilities of cameras. West Sacramento does not have those, nor do we have, as he said, the capability within our department to go to individual houses saying, we've got your license. And it's all on that meeting where he says, we go to their house, we take the picture, we say, we know you've been speeding, so we need you to stop. I'm not okay with the commissioners being told lies, because to me, that's a lie. That's not the truth. And when I talk to people, staff in the department, and find out that we don't have that capability, the fact he told the Planning Commission that, there's a problem. That is why many of us don't trust some of the staff, because untruths are told. And that's not okay, especially when you guys rely on it. The commissioners of each different commission rely on the truth. This kind of stuff needs to stop. And this is the kind of stuff that I've been talking about meeting after meeting after meeting, whether it's here or at a different type of meeting. But this has to stop. And that's what I was going to just play you, exactly what he said. And I did transcribe it, but I thought it would be easier for you to hear it from him. So you can go back and listen to it, or I can forward you it. Thank you.
You don't mind sending us an email with the date and when that meeting took?
Okay.
That'll be great.
Haley Rivas.
Can somebody help Kaylee lower the podium? She's taking care of this on her own.
Hi, I'm here because I think there should be a splash pad at Bright Park. I have 5 topics I would like to share with you. There is a much lower cost for splash pads than pools. There is also lower planning, construction, and maintenance costs. There are lower insurance costs and also much less risk of water-related injury. There's less support infrastructure required, like change rooms and admission gates. There's less work, equipment, and supplies needed to operate. There are also lower operating costs due to faster maintenance and repairs. Overcrowding is not an issue. Due to open, not gated or fenced layouts, splash pad capacity is fluid. Even if installation is regularly crowded, it's relatively easy to expand it or add another nearby. Free. Inclusive accessibility to all ages and abilities. There's no skill like knowing how to swim or a physical standard like being a certain height required to enjoy a splash pad. 4. Space open year-round. A space that pools occupy is off limits in winter, but splash pad spaces are open all year long. 5. Better water conservation. A far lower percentage of the fresh water used in splash pads is lost to evaporation and runoff compared to a pool installation. Also, who wouldn't want a cool, refreshing splash pad in the hot summer? Because I would want one. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylee.
Great job.
I want to say that our most powerful constituent voices are our children. Thank you so
Robin
much for sharing.
Davis.
Tough to follow that. Future mayor of West Sac. I'm Robin, and I live in my 160 square foot semi-off-grid tiny home on wheels on my undeveloped residential property here in West Sacramento. I want to commend all the proclamations the city initiates each council meeting and the inclusive comments made last council meeting, in particular by each of you. Mayor Pro Tem Early said it best, that West Sacramento truly is for everyone, and to feel the love from our city and from our region that we really are accepting. I truly believe these words, and that this city is open to diverse lifestyles, beliefs, people, and perspectives, and you show that in more ways than in the form of proclamations, but with actions. So I want to acknowledge and show my appreciation for that, not just your words, but actions. That's why I continue to show up and look forward to the Tiny Home on Wheels ordinance to come back to you so that this can be unanimously passed to show the entire state how open and inclusive we truly are, that tired, old, discriminatory zoning no longer belongs in our city. This ordinance strongly represents and supports our strategic priorities for our city, including managing homelessness, climate action, and equitable strategy, community investment implementation regarding impact fee reductions, and creating a path to affordable home ownership, not just for our police and educators, but for all. Not everyone wants to live in a tiny home, we know, but those who do can, and that frees up other types of housing for others. This is about freedom of choice, inclusivity, and innovation. So I'm looking forward to hearing back from David Tilley in the planning department on when the ordinance is returning to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
We have no additional requests to speak on this item.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Next, we have under presentations, item 2 is a presentation on the proclamation recognizing May 2024. I know it's June, but we allowed Councilmember Orozco to bring this to us because it's very important to recognize our community. On proclamation recognizing May 2024 as an Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And we see a large crowd here, Councilmember Orozco, and so if you can present the proclamation, and then we will allow for the speakers to speak, and then council to provide any thoughts and feedback, and then we'll go down and take a photo. Is that okay?
That would be wonderful. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Tonight, I'm very pleased and proud to present to this beautiful audience a proclamation of the City Council, City of West Sacramento, designating May 2024 as Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the City of West Sacramento proudly acknowledges the rich cultural heritage and significant contributions of Asian American and Pacific Islander, AAPI, communities, and whereas Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month is celebrated annually in May to honor the history, traditions, and diverse cultures of the AAPI communities that have enriched our nation and the West Sacramento community. And whereas AAPI individuals have played a crucial role in the development and growth of the City of West Sacramento through their entrepreneurial spirit, dedication to education, and commitment to community service, and contributions to the arts, sciences, government, and beyond. And whereas the City of West Sacramento is a home to a vibrant and diverse AAPI population, some of whom are here tonight, whose cultural traditions and values continue to enhance the social, economic, and cultural fabric of our city. And whereas the City of West Sacramento recognizes the importance of promoting awareness and understanding of the AAPI heritage, as well as addressing the challenges faced by AAPI communities, including combating prejudice and discrimination. And whereas the City of West Sacramento stands in solidarity with the AAPI community, acknowledging their resilience and striving to create an inclusive environment where all residents feel valued and respected. Now, therefore, be it hereby proclaimed by the City Council of the City of West Sacramento that the month of May 2024 be recognized, and it will be annually from here on out, as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the City of West Sacramento. And the City Council encourages all residents to celebrate the contributions of the AAPI community, to participate in events and activities that recognize their achievements, and to promote a greater understanding and appreciation of the diverse cultures that make up our mighty city. Proclaimed this 26th day of June, 2024.
Thank you. And We have a speaker who would like to present some thoughts.
I think we have a couple, actually.
You have a couple? Okay.
Hello? Okay. Hi, my name is Haley Nguyen, and I was the president of Asian Pacific Islanders Club at River City High School this year. As a cultural club, we focus on educating our members on Asian American Pacific Islander affairs, but I do believe that our club was more than a hobby or a fun activity to do during lunch. I believe that our club was a source of unity to students who may not recognize what unity is. As a part of the minority at River City High School, I've had my fair share of backhanded comments put towards me because of my ethnicity. Even if we're supposed to be mature as high schoolers, comments like, "Oh, you're smart because you're Asian," or the fact that my food smells weird would still come my way. Even if these comments weren't meant to be harmful, I always felt a sort of isolation from my non-Asian friends, as I was scared they would treat me this way as well. While leading Asian Pacific Islanders Club at first, it was definitely the little things we celebrated. I would be worried about the number of our club members every time I would present, but slowly I saw as even it was a meeting of 8 people to 40 people, the room would always be enthusiastic, waiting for me to present our new activity of the day. And it wasn't just Asian people who would attend our club. Every time I walked into the room, many different ethnicities would be waiting, and by the time I left, I would see the whole room enjoying the new craft or historical information they learned. Our club would slowly grow more ambitious, where we were able to get donations from other clubs as well as West Sacramento businesses. These donations led to our biggest accomplishment, which was decorating the school halls with lanterns for Lunar New Year's. The most satisfying part of this project wasn't seeing the end product, but it was setting up the decorations with my fellow club members I have grown familiar with through our weekly meetings. The experience of unity this club has brought to me was one of the highlights of my year, and I hope that next year we can share with you more that we're able to do around the school. The last thing I would like to mention is that many of my ambitions would be guided by Miss Patrice Griffith, who gave me resources in order to grow our club. From this, I would encourage all of the community members in this room to reach out to more students. Come to a back-to-school night event or a festival led by the elementary schools and offer your guidance to clubs, even if they don't look in need. As a small town, many of our resources feel short, and as a high schooler, I can say that any help that we can get would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Done.
Is there another speaker?
F. Gordon Wong.
Love the shirt.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, City Council members, City Manager, and West Sacramento Council staff. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Gordon Wong, and I am a resident of West Sacramento. I stand before you today to shed a light on a subject that remains in the shadows, the invisibility of Asian Americans. Although we have proclamation today to recognize Asian Americans, it is a disservice to not have recognized us in the month of May. APIs frequently find their stories overlooked, their voices unheard, and their struggles unseen. The proclamation on today's agenda, almost 4 weeks after APIA Heritage Month has ended, is an example of our community's invisibility in West Sacramento. API make up the second largest marginalized racial group at 12% in the city. AAPIs have a rich and diverse history in the United States, dating back to the mid-19th century arrival of Chinese laborers who played a crucial role in the Transcontinental Railroad. Since then, successful waves of immigrants from Japan, Korea, India, Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, and many other countries have enriched our nation and our community. Yet despite the long-standing presence, the narrative around APIAs have failed to reflect the diverse and complex experiences. Please get to know us. One of the most pervasive issues contributing to the invisibility of is the model minority myth. The stereotypes points Asian Americans as universally successful, academically gifted, and economically prosperous. While it may be positive on the surface, the myth is deeply harmful. It homogenizes a vastly diverse group of people, erasing the experiences of those who do not fit in this narrow mold. It pits APIAs against other minority groups, undermining solidarity and fight against systemic racism and discrimination. Sorry. Moreover, the model minority myth masks the real struggles of many APIAs face. It hides the high rates of poverty among certain Asian subgroups, the challenges of language barriers and mental health issues exacerbated by cultural stigmas and societal pressures. Please see us. The invisibility extends beyond individual experiences on the broader cultural and political landscape. APIAs are often underrepresented in media, politics, and leadership positions. When they do not appear, they are frequently relegated to stereotypical roles or token positions. This lack of representation not only marginalizes Asian American Pacific Islanders, but also deprives society of a diverse perspective and solutions they can offer. Please see us. Is that 3 minutes? Sorry. To address the invisibility, we must begin to recognize the challenges and stereotypes and myths that obscure the true experiences of APIAs. Education is key. By incorporating comprehensive and accurate representation of APIA history and contribution to our educational curricula, and promoting awareness, we can foster a more inclusive, understanding American society. Please get to know us. Additionally, we must amplify APIA voices in all spheres of public life. This means supporting Asian American activities, artists, politicians, writers, and leaders, ensuring they have platforms to share their stories.
If you can,
Sorry?
if you can close it at this
Okay,
point.
I'm done. My final paragraph. Thank you. Finally, we must advocate for politics or policies that address the unique needs and challenges of API community. This includes everything from languages to access services of mental health. In conclusion, the invisibility of Asian Americans is not a natural or inevitable state. It is the result of stereotypes, systematic barriers, and societal neglect. By acknowledging these and addressing these issues, we can bring stories and experiences together. Let's commit to making the invisible visible. It is not just Asian American Pacific Islanders, but for all marginalized groups. Please understand, see, and hear our Asian American and Pacific Islander community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Glennie Kennery.
And you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, City Council and fellow community members. My name is Glenelyn Kennery, and I stand before you not only as a proud Filipino American, but also as an educator, youth advocate, and most importantly, a mother of 3 young boys who are students here in West Sacramento. I brought them here today to witness how important it is to advocate for our heritage, our culture, our identities, to elevate their voices because they are the future of West Sacramento, and I want them to be proud Asian American Pacific Islanders. I am here in support of the proclamation recognizing the month of May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in our city. While I appreciate this gesture today, I do want to move forward that we celebrate it annually every month so that my kids can feel proud to be who they are today. Our AAPI community has contributed immensely to the fabric of American society, from arts and sciences to business and politics. It is vital that we honor and celebrate these contributions, not just for the benefit of our generation, but especially for the future generation represented by my children, our children. Growing up, I was fortunate to learn about my cultural heritage from my grandparents, my nanay. She's in heaven now, but I'm so thankful for her, who shared stories of resilience, traditions, and the values that define us as Filipino Americans. However, I rarely saw individuals who looked like me in the pages of history books or in professions that shape our society. So I thank the women of color that are sitting in front of me today. Now, as a mother, I understand the importance of passing down the cultural knowledge to my own children and to all youth in West Sacramento. By recognizing AAPI Heritage Month, we can ensure that our youth learn about diverse histories, achievements, and struggles of Asian American and Pacific Islanders by celebrating and honoring the month of May, the month of AAPI Heritage Month. We provide our children with an opportunity to learn about different cultures and perspectives, promoting inclusivity and appreciation for diversity. It allows them to see themselves reflected in the community and inspire them to embrace their own heritage with pride. I heard a young person speak today how important it is to be a part of that club. So I elevate you and clap you up for that. It's hard, but girl, be proud of you. In closing, I urge each member of the City Council to consider the profound impact that adopting this proclamation will have on our community, particularly on our youth, not just today, but as we plan for May 2025. We need to do better, not just for our AAPI community, but for our youth that are within West Sacramento. Let us commit to celebrating vibrant cultures, traditions, contributions of Asian American and Pacific Islanders throughout the month of May and beyond. Together, we can create a more inclusive and compassionate West Sacramento where every individual feels valued and respected, where my children, who are Filipino and American, feel like they belong in West Sacramento. Salamat, which means thank you in Tagalog.
I have no additional requests to speak on this item.
All right, bring it back to council for any comments. Councilmember Orozco, would you like to begin?
Yes. First off, let me just congratulate and commend the youth who have come to the dais tonight and who are sitting here in the audience. And thank you to our speakers who addressed, I think, what's on all of our minds. Frankly, I'm proud, even despite the fact that it is in June, that we're here to acknowledge and address our community. And it's not about just this isn't for the Asian American community and not just for the youth. This is for our entire community because we all need to embrace our diversity and the unique fabric that really does weave us all together. This isn't about us to have a private celebration because we are Asian. It's about our community to recognize what it means to have a population in our community that are uniquely West Sacramentan, but also celebrate our own historical, cultural identification. I was born Filipina Mexicana and am the third Filipina, or Filipino, the only Filipina, but the third Filipino or council member of Filipino descent to sit on this dais. And I'm very proud of my cultural heritage. I'll tell you, Haley, when you talked about food, I'll tell you, I roll the best lumpia in West Sacramento. And I challenge our youth group to a lumpia fest because I think you're right. We need to get this going. My grandpa Quirino, that's where I got my name. He was Big Q. I'm Little Q, but he's since passed, so I'm the only Q except for Dante's daughter, who is now Little Q. So Quinn. But with that said, I am very proud of his story, which is that he came from the Philippines in the 20s to work sugarcane fields in Hawaii, and he came into California and eventually married and settled here. And because of his work as a farm worker in the Delta, we reared our family and are raised very proud Filipino. This is going to be an automatic annual event, and it will happen in May. This year, we're all growing, and we look forward to being ahead of the game and having you all here again next year to celebrate ahead of time and to plan those events that Haley was talking about. Tonight is one of the hugest crowds for any of the proclamations that we have honored. And I got to say, that is a remarkable representation of how much this means to us. With that said, thank you to everyone who took a time out of their busy schedules to join us this evening. I am looking forward to taking a photo with all of you representing, so that way we can display that on our City Council website and we can use it as a springboard for many celebrations to come. Thank you.
Councilmember Alcala.
Thank you. First, I want to begin by saying thank you to Patrice Griffith for bringing the students down here. It's great to see you all. And Councilmember Orozco made note that, she is the third Asian American Pacific Islander to serve on the board. I remember Mark Montemayor. Mark went to school with my younger brother, so it tells you how old I am. But Mark was tremendous. And I want to throw out another name, Mariko Yamada. She was an assemblywoman here, and she was fantastic. She did a lot for people like me, Latinos and Filipino Americans have very strong ties. My husband worked for Cesar Chavez, and Cesar Chavez is well known for being an incredible leader within the labor movement, help farm workers, but he didn't do it alone. A man by the name of Larry Itlong was also a Filipino gentleman, was very, very close to Cesar. And we had Filipino Americans and you had Latinos out there, Mexican Americans, working the fields with very little rights, not getting the money they deserved, being often abused out there. And those two men fought very, very hard to make things right for them. And, it continues. The fight continues for many people of color. But the most important thing is the unity that you mentioned that you had other people who came to your clubs. And I want to thank you because I remember when we did the first Dia de los Muertos event, it was actually your group that came out. I was hoping more of our Latino students would come and celebrate. And many of them did, but it was actually your club that reached out to us, and you guys had a wonderful booth out there for the kids to enjoy. So I want to thank you so much for your involvement, and your presence here, and we want to see your presence perhaps someday up here in the mayor's chair. Thank you.
Member Sulpicio Hall.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. It's wonderful to have the youth voice in the room. It's powerful, and I just appreciate you guys and gals spending the time with us tonight. Want to apologize that it's June. Thank you for holding us accountable. We absolutely got it wrong. And I want to thank Councilmember Karina Orozco for bringing this to our attention. We discussed at the last council meeting unanimous approval to put it on the agenda and to make sure that this happens annually. And so we will do better. And so thank you for that. Thank you for coming tonight. Want to just compliment the cultural club. I'm Puerto Rican and Italian. I'm mixed. I feel invisible a lot of the times. And I remember when I met outside of my family, the first Puerto Rican person. It was in New York in Central Park. And I was like, my people. That connection is so powerful and strong. And I want to thank you for building that community at the high school and for the work that you're doing. And I will be at Lumpia Fest. Yes, girl. I think that would be a wonderful thing to have. And so thank you for coming today and challenging us to show up to the clubs and offer assistance because we can do better. So thank you for being here tonight.
So I too want to add my appreciation for you taking the time to come tonight and share why this is so important and that we absolutely should be celebrating this and making sure that we celebrate it when it's supposed to be celebrated in May. A couple of things. I want to also acknowledge and just apologize. Deeply saddened that we missed this, particularly because of what you often see with the invisible Asian, quite frankly, being looked over. Our friend reached out to us, Jackie Wong, who is a trustee on Washington Unified School District, and said, hey, did you guys celebrate Asian American Month this month? And I was like, yeah, we did. Yes. She's like, no, you didn't. And I was like, oh my God. And I felt so deeply hurt for my friend, so deeply hurt for, I'm looking at you, Lisa, just that I would, as people I consider my family, overlook you and do exactly what we know society often does to Asian American, Asian Pacific Islanders, which is overlook you. And we did just that. And so I'm sorry, this will never happen again. We absolutely will get it right. Thank you for holding us accountable. And it wasn't right. And we will do better because you deserve better. And as I often say, both about Black history Asian Pacific Islander history absolutely is part of American history, and this month is not only celebrated to celebrate you all, it's also so that we are all educated about the contributions that your community has made to make all of us better and together. Thank you.
Thank you, council members. What an incredible presence to have you here and to express your thoughts, your experiences in what our community has done, and for holding us accountable on how we can do better. In not recognizing, on your behalf, we have some blind spots in our city, and we need to do better. And hopefully, this is a change that we will continue to make and be doing this on a regular basis. I do have, like Councilmember Alcala, who put together Dia de los Muertos. She independently, as a council member, knowing in her community how important that is, stood up her own event. And thereafter, we started to brainstorm on recognizing certain cultures and communities that value, and so that value, certain days like Cesar Chavez Day or Hispanic Heritage Month. And then continuing to roll out, there was Juneteenth, and then, Black History Month, Pride. I still feel we're missing, and I hope anybody listening out there gives us a call and continues to ask for us to step up, to continue to represent those members of the community who are feeling ignored, overlooked, oppressed, because that is not this council. We value all of you, and we are working to try to see how we can fill those gaps in recognizing our community. And in taking a look at, what we've done in the past to recognize our Asian American populations has been the Japanese internment. When I received a call from a constituent who said, the city has not recognized that. So I actually packaged together my own proclamation because it was very short notice. And the day was coming, and so I typed it up myself, and I printed it out myself, and I said, I'm recognizing you. And that's just sometimes what we have to do. We have to do it in the spur of the moment. And the next is OCA, Dragon Boat Festival. And we fortunately had a little bit of time, and in this last Dragon Boat Festival, Councilmember Orozco and I attended, and we recognized the AAPI community members there. But we fell short. And here we are, and I appreciate that we were called on by our school board trustees and anybody else out there who feels that we need to do better. So with that, I would like to extend my gratitude for you coming forward and showing what we can do better here in West Sacramento. And I hope that you can walk away with pride and with hope that the city will be here standing ready with you to support you in anything you need as you described. You need the support. And if there's anything we can do, we belong to so many clubs and organizations. I received a request from a high school student who says, look, we're trying to get medical training. And you know people. So I said, yes, I do. And I gave them email addresses, telephone numbers, use my name, contact them. Get whatever scholarships or any financing you need to run your club so that you can run it. Contact us. We know people who are constantly looking to invest in the community to make it a better community. Don't hesitate. So with that, I would like to go down and see if we can take a photo with you.
All right, let's get together, take a photo.
not. Getting all the faces on three. 1, 2, 3. Let's do one more. This is good. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Mayor, I'm going to pull 15. I said, Mayor, I'm going to pull 15, okay? Just
Gonna pull
FYI.
15, okay.
Just for a bit of explanation.
Sure.
What is it she was talking about, a splash pool? What did she say?
I don't think she had a lot of ideas. She had a list.
And Alea, kids that were here.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
All right, next we have our consent agenda items 3 through 16. Are there any requests to remove an item for questions or for presentation, which I'll be pulling number 4 separately for a vote?
Okay, and I'm going to pull 15. I just needed a little information on that, Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to pull 15 as well.
I'd like to pull 8.
Okay. Any others? No, and, all right. With that, I'll accept a motion to approve the remaining items except 4, 8, and 15. So moved.
Madam Mayor, did you want to take public comment on the items that were not pulled before
Yes, you do
taking
have
the vote?
requests for, to speak, yes. Madam Clerk?
Whoops. I have a request to speak on item 7, Pat Flint.
Pat Flint? No? Okay. Pat? Are you here to speak on item number 7?
Okay.
On which?
I'm sorry, which items were pulled? 4.
Sorry, 4, 8, and 15.
I have a request to speak on item 9, Pat Flint.
I just have a concern that you would even consider permitting any project that would not preclude public safety by allowing, before permits are given to the developer from the California Flood Control Agency or whatever it is, and the Corps of Engineers, the Federal Corps of Engineers, because the safety road is to go along, I can't remember which corner, of the project. That means fire safety, any kind of safety that needs to be done within and around that building. You're going to allow the developer to come in and develop the property before he has proper permitting. And I, for one, do not like that kind of business, and it should not be going that way. If I came in and wanted a permit waived for any reason, do you think that it would be allowed for me? No. So John Q. Public can't get permitting through the city if it doesn't have all of its other permits in place. Thank you.
just like to confirm that item number 8 was pulled.
Yes.
That's the other consent item I have a request to speak on. So
Okay.
I have no others that you will be taking the vote on right now.
Mayor, can I go ahead and pull 9? I just wanted a few questions. Yeah,
Yes, we'll
nice.
pull item number 9. And, okay, so we're pulling item number 9. Now we're left with the remaining from 3 through 16 for a vote. And we'll pull number 9. And with that, I'll accept the motion.
So moved.
Second. Madam Clerk, Councilmember Orozco moved, and Councilmember Alcala seconded. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Sulpicio Hull.
Aye.
Councilmember Alcala.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Early.
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero.
Aye. All right, those are approved. We will begin with item number 4. And I received an email last night related to item number 4. And I'm sorry, can you present who you are?
Yeah, definitely. My name is Kevin Tan. I'm an assistant civil engineer with the Capital Projects Department.
So I received a bid advisory related to this, not Dewey, but it's the, go back to who it is. Central Valley Engineering and Asphalt, Inc. And it was an extensive attachment
Yeah.
related to that. Can you tell me, how do we, when we make a determination on accepting a bidder, it's based just on the lowest bid, nothing about the history of the bidder?
Yeah, so once we receive the bids, so this is a federally funded project, firstly, so we go with, this is a bid analysis once we open these bids. It is lowest bid. It is awarded to the lowest bid, and in this case, Central Valley Engineering. With that, we do a bid analysis on each bid proposal that was submitted. That bid analysis is followed. It's followed by the LAPM. So we do extensive analysis on this on each bidders, and we go through the we do analysis on the bids.
FFC is a well-recognized Foundation for Fair Contracting, is a nonprofit organization which serves the public interest since 1985. And the objective is to monitor compliance with prevailing wage laws, which is, our bids should be
Of course, yeah.
adhering to prevailing wage laws, correct?
Correct.
And pertaining to the construction industry. And so in looking at the email, there seems to be a track record with this bidder of failing to comply with prevailing wage laws. How does that ever get taken into consideration when we accept the bidder, that we have somebody with what I have, documentation, showing that they have paid fines historically, even sued, that we still approve that we are still being asked to approve this? I mean, these are the taxpayer dollars I'm trying to protect.
Correct. Yeah.
And that we approve a bidder who doesn't have a past, that, such as what I'm noticing here from the documentation I received.
Yeah, so this project is a federally funded project, like I said earlier, and labor compliance will be held with the highest standards with federal regulations. So with that being said, are we referencing the letter itself? Is that what
Well, the
we
letter
are?
shows that this bidder
Right.
has been penalized and has had to pay, penalties because there's been a history. Now, I received the letter rebutting that, but you
Right.
can't take away the penalties. You can't, there's been paid penalties.
So,
If I can.
yeah, please.
Yes,
So
go ahead.
so let me help address. Bids can be rejected on two grounds.
Yes.
Not responsive or not responsible. Responsiveness is generally what we look at in terms of the bid is complete, contains all the information that's required. A responsibility determination is entirely different. It's a much higher standard. It requires a noticed public hearing where the bidder has an opportunity to present information in response. From my perspective, and I've looked through their bid advisory, they've identified some penalties that were awarded by DIR, the most recent of which was 5 years ago. The numbers there are relatively small when you think about the sum total of the contracts. They are matters that have been resolved. In terms of the lawsuits, one of those lawsuits has been dismissed with prejudice. Another one, there's been no action on the case since 2020. And the third one was only filed last year, and so it's premature to have, and we don't know anything about that particular one. But that is, in my opinion, very, very, very thin grounds to find a bidder not responsible.
And just to add to that point, just from a practical standpoint, well, also from a probably legal one, to hold each contractor to that kind of standard means that we have to do that on every single contract, and there's some concern about how that would impact our ability to award bids and create liability in doing so if we hold everyone to a kind of a thin standard.
I understand. And I understand that if this happened once or twice, but it was more than that.
I think the recent one was 2015, right?
2017, 2019.
2019 was the most recent, the others were
But
2017.
but you're right, there's history.
Mhm.
You capture that. It's
Yeah.
great.
I'd also like to add, when we did receive this email late last night, first thing in the morning I did was I referenced the contractors reference list. So we called the other cities within the Regency, and they've had nothing but good things to say about this contractor. So I don't just to give some reassurance towards, this is current present time, and had nothing to say, that only good things to say. So
The only other thing I'd want to add to, just we say this every time we get one of these, this isn't the first time we've gotten a bid advisory, and there is a difference between getting a bid advisory from an organization that wasn't a bidder versus an actual bid protest that can be it could be done on similar grounds. In this case, we had 2 other bidders, and to my knowledge, there were no bid protests on this project.
no, and they received all the bid documents. Both other bidders reached out. We gave them full bids of the apparent low, which is Central Valley, and no further contact has been made. So,
Well, I appreciate that you did some more work and contacted the other cities. And I wouldn't mind an email, in advance, letting me know that you did that, so that I have more information
sure, yeah.
before, because I think that's very helpful. And it also shows your due diligence in researching this a little further after receiving.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So I appreciate you looking into that. I would still like for, I know that the work may be good, but I'm a little worried about hiring somebody who has a history of this kind of behavior in the way they treat their employees. For me, if you're going to be hiring somebody, they're going to be taking care of their employees. And if there's any kind of history, there's more than just 1 or 2. It's several. So, yeah. So with that, I don't know if there's any
Mayor,
other questions.
I just have
go ahead.
a quick question. I know we had bids for the school district.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very lengthy questions that they asked people who were putting bids. One of the questions was, have you ever had a lawsuit filed against you? What were the reasons for that? Do we have that on our language as well?
Yeah, we do. We do a thorough search on the debarment, and if there's any active exclusions with the contractor itself within the nation. So with this letter that came, I rechecked that as well, and they have a clean record as of current records right now for there's no debarment or no exclusions on any of those terms.
Thank you for checking, because I know we ran into that problem with the school district. They said there weren't any problems. And luckily, one of my fellow board members actually worked with the courts, and she said that's not true. So we were able to. So thank you for being diligent about that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Agreeing with the mayor on working with businesses that take care of our employees, follow the law. In the response from Central Valley Engineering, they outlined fairly extensive work history with the city, and I just want to confirm that in all of the projects we've worked on with them, we have not had any issues regarding prevailing wage and any of the labor laws that they should be following.
Yeah, I don't have any history of past projects with Central Valley Engineering. They're new to I believe our department, but
Isn't that, but that's not what you said. You said that they have a history of working with us.
If I read that email, they have a history of working with the city, correct?
Good evening, Ariana Dami, Director of Capital Projects. They did state that in the letter. They haven't done anything that I'm aware of recently. We usually will check, also, do reference checks on projects that we have already hired them on, but just to provide some reassurance for during the project moving forward, because we can do a snapshot check right now, right, which is what we did. But moving forward, we do monitor them extensively. We're required to. It's a federally funded project. And so we outsource the prevailing wage monitoring, and we deal with it immediately and follow our procedures. And so this is not just, okay, we sign the contract and we just kind of let it run. This is going to be something that we continue to monitor throughout the duration of the project because we're required to. So wanted to provide that additional kind of reassurance that it's not something we're just going to check now and let the contract run.
And I trust you, which is why I'm going to support this tonight, Ariana, because I know historically we've had some situations where the work was not done right. But I do trust you because I've been looking at the projects and hearing from people and how you work. And you are very thorough, so that's why.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I think that we can, I think also when we do get a contract or a bid, and we're going to approve them, I also think we need to do, if you can, take a look at how we can refine our process so that we're not in a situation looking at somebody we're going to approve with the history. I'm open to that. Any other questions? Okay, I'll accept a motion to approve item 4.
I'll move. Early seconds.
Councilmember Sulpicio Hull moved, Mayor Pro Tem Early seconded. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Sulpicio Hull.
Aye.
Councilmember Alcala.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Early.
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero.
Aye. All right, this item is approved. And next we have item 8.
There was public comment on this item, I believe.
And was there a public comment request for that one? Oh, sorry, for item 4?
Oh, no, 8.
Oh, there is for 8. Yes, sorry. There is for item 8. We're going to accept a presentation and questions, and then we'll open it up for public comment. And just jump in and butt in anytime when there's there. Thank you. Who is that? Who asked for
I
it?
pulled 8.
You pulled 8?
Yeah, I don't need a presentation. I
Okay.
just wanted to make comment, but I wanted to hear public comment as well.
Oh, sure. Okay. Do you want to just start with public comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tim Campbell.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Tim Campbell, resident, West Sacramento. I stand in strong support of this project. I think it'll be great. Be probably one of the best things since sliced bread in our city, so I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
I have no additional requests to speak on this item. Your card has item.
Did you want to speak on item 8?
Yeah, 7, 9, and 18 were on the card.
Wrong number.
I'm sorry. My comments are not with the master plan at all. My comments are how we go about getting property to apply to the state for the California Surplus Lands Act. It seems to me what West Sacramento is doing is they're purchasing property in areas where they want to redevelop, and you're not in the real estate business, using our tax dollars to purchase property so that you can in turn, after it's used for emergency homeless housing, and then designate it as surplus property to apply for grants from the state of California and the federal government. It just doesn't seem right. I mean, if you are going to want to apply for those grants and you have surplus property, why do you go and purchase more property to get more grants to do high-density housing? Now, like I say, I don't object to this project. I object to the process you're going through to purchase property such as these hotels along West Capitol Avenue. And in this specific Gateway project, you bought 2 pieces of property, and then you moved the homeless down the street where you bought 3 pieces of property to put them in. Then you're going to move them again and use that as surplus property for high-density housing. It just does not seem right. Is that what the law says you can do?
I don't think that's what's happening, but I hear what you're saying on surplus. It's the Surplus Land Act, and the Surplus Land Act is a process where if the local government owns the land, we go to the state to declare it or not. And this went through that process, and it was not declared under the Surplus Land Act, correct?
This is considered exempt surplus land because of the way the transaction is being structured. And I think
It's
Tracy
being
could talk.
structured, yes.
But it was exempt, so it's not.
Right.
It's not securing the, I don't know what grant, but in order to build affordable housing, which is under the housing element, and there are many cities who are not getting their housing elements approved, just to let you know, that is a huge barrier for cities to be able to move forward on many other funding sources, such as what we get for transportation. And it really is a wall between
I
the city and
understand
the
that,
state.
but my problem is, we as the public do not get a chance to talk about land negotiations or sales or other sorts of things. You go behind closed doors, you're purchasing properties along West Capitol Avenue specifically.
Right.
And then you're designating them surplus land to get the grant to build the high density.
And I'd be happy to sit down, and we can sit down together, because there's a lot behind all of that.
Okay,
And
but
I
you're
hear you.
using taxpayer money to purchase land to do this.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Does that close the public comment?
I have no additional requests to speak on this item.
Okay, so for any other,
My comment?
yes, you may.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Sofizio.
When this item came through our packages in the consent, I didn't want to miss an opportunity to speak to the magnitude of this project. This is not going to be, it's not the first time it's come before us, and we'll be talking about it again. But not only in the size of this project, magnitude-wise, but how long this has been in the works. Their first piece of property that the city was able to purchase to take ownership in this area was 1993. That was 31 years ago. This is an aspirational project of the redevelopment, the former redevelopment agency, of what our city could become. And 31 years later, we are making a huge step in partnering with 2 businesses who want to realize this area's potential. At the State of the City yesterday, I presented an award to a local business who spent a lot of time improving one of the entrances to West Sacramento, Kilder Farms, which is one of our entrances to the south. This Grand Gateway is absolutely a Grand Gateway entrance to our community, and I just want to thank the decades of staff who've been working on this project and the aspirational leadership of the past who knew that we could do something here, and thank our partners who are in the room, and I look forward to realizing this vision of what West Sacramento can be.
Any other comments? Well, I'm with Tim. This is the best thing since sliced bread. have to say that, and I don't think that's what Ms. Flint was saying about this she's supportive of the project. It's the process, which we're more than happy to sit down and go over this with you. But I do think that this project is like the most amazing project in one of the most challenging areas of our city. And this transformation that you're bringing to the city is going to lift up an area that I think the entire city has been looking forward to seeing improve. And so I applaud you for coming and doing business with West Sacramento. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Mayor?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I just wanted to chime in. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I know we didn't have any direct questions, but I also am excited about this. This is just a few steps from where I reside, and I'll say it'll absolutely augment the complexion of an area that has long needed a facelift. In all fairness, this has been envisioned for many, many years. So today is a very special day because we finally get to see the acts of many governments before us coming finally to fruition when it comes to a transportation hub and housing and just a lot of active engagement in a particular area of our city, one that's been so in need of development. So thank you for bringing this forth and for moving forward our city in that direction. I think we're all in agreement that this is probably one of the biggest things to come our way in quite some time.
All right, and with that, again, I'll accept a motion to.
So moved.
All right.
Early seconds.
Councilmember Orozco moved, Mayor Pro Tem Don Early seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sulpicio Hull.
Aye.
Councilmember Alcala.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Early.
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero.
Aye. All right, congratulations in our partnership together. Thank you. Next is item number 9.
Thank you, Mayor. I pulled this because a member of the public had some concerns, and I think it's really important to be very transparent in the way the process works within the city. Under analysis, I noticed that this project, had the under analysis says applications for these permits were submitted in 2023 and expect to be approved within 6 to 9 months. So my question is it customary for us to start these projects, to approve these projects especially when it comes to safety? This has not been approved yet by the permits department. I mean, it's public safety we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Tracy Michael, Economic Development and Housing Director. Our riverfront is one of our most unique assets, and it's nothing short of a miracle to get all of the regulatory agencies associated with permitting along the riverfront aligned with a development team that's qualified and capable and with financing. We have that with this project, and we have a project that requires an easement along the riverfront portion, the trail portion, for public access at the point we have occupancy. Ideally, you'd have all the permits in hand ahead of time, but on our riverfront, we're finding that it's taking so long for a lot of the regulatory agencies to complete even what's a very basic permit process, that offering this flexibility allows projects to move forward when you have everything else lined up, and the risk is very low. The certificate of occupancy will not be granted without having these improvements made, and these improvements are expected to be needed really in about 2 years. The project has a very lengthy construction period, and the first portion of that project, the improvements that are being constructed actually do have fire access all around those components. The last portion of the project to be built, which will be done a little bit later in the process, is the multi-story building that needs that access from the riverfront, and it's anticipated this permit will be in hand before they even really start to construct that portion of the project. But the certificate of occupancy will not be issued. There will not be any occupants in the building until such time the permit is received and the improvements are made.
And Tracy, if you could confirm this for me, just in terms of your the question you asked about is it typical with these kinds of projects? To my knowledge, we've only had one other project that has been built on the riverfront that had to deal with these specific regulations, and that would have been the 805 Riverfront, I believe it's called now. Ran into a similar situation there, worked with our staff to come up with a creative solution to create an interim solution. But I think part of the answer is that, yes, it doesn't happen very often because there haven't been many projects, or really this is the second one. that'll go vertical on the riverfront at this point. So.
Okay, thank you. And just one quick follow-up question. Would we normally be this flexible if it were someone else doing the project? Let's say a private citizen was trying to get some sort of permit and they started building, I mean, what, in
We would
essence, would
evaluate the
happen?
project exactly the same way, evaluate the risk and evaluate, and not a lot of projects need this type of permitting. These regulatory agencies, the Central Valley Flood Protection Board and the Army Corps of Engineers, are unique to riverfront development only. So I would expect that as we have more projects move forward on the riverfront, we're going to have to continue to be creative. But you know, I would turn to the Community Development Department director to speak to how, you know, other projects might be evaluated. But
I think
okay.
I'll chime in. I think as a city culture, we try to get to yes on every issue that we have. So whether it's someone who has run into a challenging issue trying to do an improvement to their home, or I think what the case you're referring to is when people start building things that they're not supposed to, and then we have to intervene. Even in those cases, we try to be helpful to get to a point where if it can be permitted, then we help them get there. So I understand the spirit of the question, and I'll say as the manager, it's important to us to have that sort of assistance throughout the city. This is a really unique case, though. We're building on the riverfront, as Tracy said. It's not an everyday kind of thing like some of the other issues we encounter with people that run into those issues with permitting and getting ahead of stuff. So hopefully that helps.
Yes, it does. I just want to make certain that everyone understands the process that we're using and that it's going to be on an individual basis, as you said, and it's not something that we would ignore if it were someone else, you know, asking for the same type of process in terms of permitting. I know that there have been public comments made before about the permits and how long it takes to get things permitted. I know when we had the community center, Broderick Rec Community Center, it took a very long time to get those permits approved. And, you know, it was a very difficult process, actually. So I think that's one of the reasons concerns were raised. Okay, thank you.
Before you leave, about that, this brings up, I think being the person who receives a lot of emails about permits, I'm so happy with the permit pal that's coming up. Hopefully that'll help alleviate some of the burdens later this year, and helping, you know, businesses and residents to get access to the permits they need and to also understand the zoning and everything else so that they can navigate that process online. It gets really expensive. Go back and forth, you know, to try to get a permit approved if you don't have all the information up front. And what we do want is, you know, the construction to happen. But we do want to do it safely. And I do know our chief here sitting, who holds a very high standard, especially with our fire marshal, Brian Johnson, who I will say is, I think we were the only county who did this 6-hour, I forgot how many hours it was, training on emergency. It's just, I'm just speaking to how our fire department holds a very high standard, and I value that, and just and I know that it's been a barrier for others as well. But you know, with this project, I feel that we are working with, you know, we do have more history, and I hope that with others who we don't have enough history, that we equally work collaboratively with them as we move forward.
And just on that note, we are doing, as you mentioned, the kind of permitting procedure analysis that we hope will lead to some streamlining on the front end. But I do want to, you know, sort of speak in defense of our community development department and certain cases where there are construction activities that are started before permits are issued. Obviously, that's not the case here. This is a very different situation. But they do spend a tremendous amount of time, even in those circumstances, helping those applicants through the process. They become more complicated when that happens, and it's a very difficult process at that point. But they do a good job of even helping under those circumstances. And I know it's frustrating for people sometimes, but we all do our best to to help people through our process when those sort of situations happen.
And thank you, Erin. And there was never anything that you really had to defend. We know that the folks do a great job. I think it's just so the public can understand the process when some of these questions are asked. We want to make sure it's clear and it's very transparent. Thank you.
With that, I'll accept the motion to approve item number 9.
So moved.
Early seconds.
Councilmember Orozco moved and Mayor Pro Tem Early seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sulpicio Hull.
Aye.
Councilmember Alcala.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Early.
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero.
Aye. All right, this item is approved. Thank you. And we have item 15, last.
Yes. Mayor, I just wanted some clarification because I'm sorry, you're going to make a presentation. Sorry.
Erin Rivas, the Parks and Recreation Business Manager.
So this has been, just for clarification, this has been an item that I've asked to put over. And this is an item you're bringing a question.
Right, I just had some questions. So this is on some of the language in here. Let me pull it out, I'm sorry. Over here, outlined it. Consideration on regulating special events in the city. There were certain, on page, under the ordinance, it says here, permits will not be considered for events proposed on privately owned parcels used for parking. The parking is not incidental to any other on-site activity, and the parcel is not intended. I guess I'm thinking of the stadium right now, the Sutter Park. Would that include Sutter Park? And the reason I'm asking that, I remember they had wonderful Soleil, that Circus Soleil there. Would that prohibit this type of activity?
They went through the whole permitting process, the temporary use permit, to allow for that. So it was a formal process that they went through that actually took, I think, about a year. It was a pretty lengthy process, so it wouldn't prevent that. This is, I think the special event committee kept getting together, and we're getting an uptick in requests for special events using the parking lots. And, with staffing challenges and public safety concerns, we realized that the parking lot in the entertainment district was geared towards supporting special events, not for actually, hosting standalone special events.
Okay, so what is the language then really saying? I guess
Basically, if think of it this way, that's a great question about Cirque du Soleil, because as Erin mentioned, that one went through an actual permitting process and received a use permit it was a longer use. It was there for, I think, a couple months at least. Instead, think of a weekend concert that, part of the vision for the ballpark was that it would be a venue for concerts. It was built to hold them. Places like the Barn and the Riverwalk Park, that the city owns, are similar in that sense. It was never really contemplated that the parking lots that are only parking lots would be themselves host venues for things like concerts. They're actually not meant to be parking lots long term, as you well know. The parking lots around the Bridge District are all zoned for mixed use development. So there's an aspect of, when we have those sorts of concerts that are just there for one day, you have residential environment around that. It was never really intended for that purpose. And on top of that, it provides a disincentive for those lots to remain vacant under, sort of vacant use for a much longer period of time. So we're trying to balance kind of the intent of some of these facilities that were built purposely for that, but at the same time not preclude. I'll give you another example. If someone, say, wanted to have a farmer's market, for example, and this has happened before, out in Southport, I believe at Lowe's, there used to be one there. There's a business associated with that parking lot that's an active business. It is the parking lot for the business. And so we're not intending to preclude those sorts of events from taking place, but when it's a standalone parking lot and that's the only use it's supposed to be used for, that's what it's really trying to get at.
do you think this could in any way inhibit maybe shows like Cirque du Soleil coming in?
No, because what we would do there again is if it's a use that has a longer term use and has its own traffic plan, its own kind of setup as a temporary building, that's a different proposal than something that's just like a one-day concert. So we do distinguish the two different types of uses.
Okay, and do you think maybe, a one-day concert, I'm not saying that, I don't know the latest rock groups or whatever is out there. That's primarily what it would do. It would prohibit
That's kind of the spirit of what we're trying to avoid here, is just those one-off, where the parking lot is a convenient place for it, but it's not really the best place in the city because we have concert venues and we want those events to take place within those. They're built to accommodate the noise. They have their own use permits with them, so.
Have we gotten public, though, input on this? I mean, we've talked with the owners. I mean, how do they feel? Because it is their private property. And
So in the case you're mentioning, if we want to talk about the River Cats, and I think that's the mayor's concern as well, they've been busy, understandably, so have we. But this ordinance is important. We have talked to them for many months about it. Our recommendation is to actually hold first reading tonight. We're going to be meeting with them, I think, very soon here, just to get the feedback. But our intention is to not recommend changes. We did this very deliberately, purposely, kind of gave them a heads up that it was coming. We want them to understand it, though. So before we bring it back for second reading, we want to make sure that we go over some of those examples you just discussed to make sure that they're clear about what is permissible and what shouldn't be going forward. So before we go to second reading, we'll have those discussions and then bring it back.
So if you do make any changes, we would have had a first reading though, so how does that work?
We would have to, if it's a non-substantive change, and city attorney can weigh in on what that means, then no issue. If we do, for example, if they were to raise something and something maybe we hadn't thought of, although I think this was pretty well vetted, and we did suggest a change that was beyond non-substantive, we would have to redo first reading.
I see.
Yeah.
So I don't feel comfortable voting for it tonight, given that there could be, I mean, I just don't know what the response is. I mean, you said you vetted it, but I don't know for sure.
I think it would help staff and to understand if this is sort of the policy framework we just described that's presented in the ordinance tonight. If there are strong objections to that kind of policy, that one that is meant to prohibit one-day concerts in a parking lot versus something like Cirque du Soleil, and encourages instead concerts to happen in concert venues that have been built and planned and operated as such. If that's something that the full council has strong feelings about, it would be helpful to hear that tonight. But we feel like we've foreshadowed this to the River Cats. We've also, in practice, been operating this way because of the strains it puts on our law enforcement and our other public services. And so, it's been known that this is coming. Yes, you're right. It would be nice to have had full input from one of the parties that is most impacted. And I say full input because there has been input. But our intention is to present it tonight for first reading, have those discussions. And if there's something major that was missed that we acknowledge that you need to hear about, then we would redo first reading at that point. But this is our third time here. So it actually would be our third time here, right? This is the third time.
Before I went out for my
we've
surgery,
delayed it.
so.
That's at some point we have to question our resources in doing that. So.
I do have a quick question. So when these concerts go on, you said they put a huge burden on the resources, our police department.
Right.
I always thought that they got reimbursed from these people that bring these
Right. There are the
concerts in.
expectations, and our policy is that reimbursement occurs. However, it also, when we have, if it's really easy to have those sorts of events here, they will happen. And when that happens, it could be every weekend, and that is more the resource constraint. We don't have the availability of officers every weekend to work overtime shifts that could be reimbursed. So we're just trying to be more, not more streamlined necessarily, but more thoughtful in terms of we want to encourage concerts here, but we have places like the stadium, the barn, the Riverwalk Park, and other parks that are better, more appropriate venues to manage. So that that's part of the issue too. Having them in the parking lot is a harder place for us to manage than having them in one of these venues.
Okay, and just real quick, you said you've had conversations with them already, and you said you were going to have another one?
So we haven't, let me back that up. So we have had individual conversations. I've talked to, the River Cats president about the fact that this was coming, sort of talked about the spirit of it. I know at the staff level, there have been other discussions with some of the staff on the River Cats that work special events. But what we haven't had is a formal sit down to kind of go over it, line by line, and have everyone be on the same page about understanding this is exactly what we would be prohibiting and what we wouldn't. But like I said, we've also operated in practice this way for, the better part of a year probably. So I think what we're doing here is memorializing what has been recent practice with the river
And
cats.
we could always deny them, right? I mean, just like assume, you said it would happen week after week after week.
Right.
We could just simply deny them also, though, even though it's private property.
We have that discretion, but we try to be fair to everyone. So we don't want to, kind of pick and choose the winners and losers on which concerts, we think we want versus ones we don't. So we feel like this is a more fair approach that also, kind of signals that we don't want these parking lots to remain parking lots forever, because they will. And the easier it is to sort of monetize them for reasons that were not intended for their ultimate use, which is high density mixed use development, the more disincentive an owner has to kind of operate it that way. And I'm not singling out the river cats at all by that. There's other places in West Sacramento this occurs, and that is part of the policy goal of this ordinance.
Thanks for answering my questions.
Madam Mayor?
Yes. Councilmember
If I
Orozco.
may. I just wanted to point out that the report does refer to the fact that there is an interdisciplinary team of staff, which includes our parks, police, fire, transportation, parking, building, and public works departments representatives. Is that fair to say, Mr. City Manager?
Yes.
Okay, and so this is something that, I know it's been around for quite some time. We've kicked this can to the point of today, and I'd hate to kick it further. I want to do something about this. I'm also been very concerned about, the fantastic news that we are going to have MLB for 3-year period, and it's going to really change the complexion of how the area looks. As well, with all the activity and the impact on public safety and roads. It's not just about money. This is about time and the ability of our public safety officials to actually respond. So I'm in favor of this. I agree that this has been vetted. It's on its third, and it's not going to be the last time we see this. I just, if there's no further discussion on it, I would be happy to make the motion.
Okay. And with that, if, there's a
Early seconds.
Okay. Councilmember Orozco moved, and I'll be voting no on this. And Mayor Pro Tem Early seconded, because I think we needed more time. And so, if you can please call the roll.
Councilmember Sulpicio Hull?
Aye.
Councilmember Acala?
I'm going to vote no.
Councilmember Orozco?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Early? Aye. Mayor Guerrero?
No. All right, next is, thank you so much, appreciate that. Next is public hearings, item 17 under community development is a public hearing in consideration of resolution 24-44, amending the refuse book of fees and consideration of approval of a settlement agreement and First Amendment to collection service agreement with Waste Management, Economic Development, and Housing Department. And we have Senior Analyst, Ms. Susan Strand. I think, is there a team or is it just you? And you just all speak and tell me. Are you going to be doing the presentation? Okay, sorry, I didn't have the list of who was going to present.
Yes.
It doesn't matter, just state your name and whoever's going to present on this.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, City Council members. My name is Rose Radford with R3 Consulting. R3 works with only city governments on their contracts with waste management companies. And so I'm here today to present on 3 items, one of it which is the public hearing item, and there are 2 others as well. And I'll provide you a little bit of background. I'll go through the key terms of the amendment, contract amendment that's before you tonight, and then discuss the subject of the public hearing, which is changes to the refuse book of fees, and then staff's recommendation. So the 3 items all relate to your franchise agreement with Waste Management, which does end June 30th of 2027. Waste Management has been your provider for many years now. Your contract with them includes a diversion requirement. The city and Waste Management began settlement negotiations related to that diversion requirement 3 years ago, and those negotiations are now successful. The key terms of the settlement agreement include about $200,000 payment to the city from Waste Management, a annual payment of $25,000 to the city. There's container labeling requirements and additional regulations around container overflow that Waste Management requested. And there's also a change to your diversion guarantee, which was reduced to 35%. Included in the advantages to the city related to the settlement agreement and the amendment to your contract is a smart truck program. This is something that Waste Management does throughout the United States. They've been rolling this out in their communities. It also relates to a recent state law, SB 1383, which would require the city to do contamination monitoring, potentially in a different way. This saves the city a lot of money and also is something that will hopefully improve the information that the public has about what really goes where. There's going to be a 90-day pilot for this that staff is going to be working closely with Waste Management through that period to make sure that there's not any unexpected issues related to it. There's also 2 warnings before charges, and there's a threshold. So just one item that might be misplaced is not enough to trigger a notice to be issued to those customers. The agreement amendment includes additional staff for Waste Management and other related program enhancements. And the issue on the public hearing is a small change in some of the rates that are in the city's refuse book of fees. The city is currently going through a Proposition 218 rate setting. These fees that are going to be changed are not Proposition 218 related, and so we're suggesting changing them now, along with a few changes related to the agreement amendment. The extra pickup fees and special fees for like special services, essentially overage and contamination as well, will be increased as a part of this public hearing. And we're also changing the categorization of a bin service, so that's the larger dumpster size containers in residential households are going to now be charged the multifamily rate instead of the commercial rate, which gives them access to organic service at no additional charge. The fees would be effective September 1st. So staff recommends that you adopt the resolution amending the refuse book of fees, approve the settlement agreement, and approve the first amendment that's associated with that settlement agreement tonight. And I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
All right. Thank you so much for the presentation. Bring it back to council if there are any questions.
I have a quick question. Thank you.
Councilmember Sapezia-Hall?
Regarding the rate increase, the city's been subsidizing this, and we will continue to do that, and so there's no increase to residents. Am I reading that correctly?
So there's 2 different rates. There's the rate that Waste Management is paid by the city because the city collects the fees from the residents. And then there's the rate that the city charges to residents. And so those are different numbers. And so what Waste Management has been charging you more than the rate that you are charging customers. And that's the subsidy that's described.
And then what will it look like moving forward with this approval?
Thank you. So for what we're proposing here tonight, as you're aware, we're undertaking a rate study for all of our utilities. Increases in rates have to go through a Proposition 218 process. So we will do that to implement new rates for refuse in the next year. We're still working on that process. And so once we get through the Proposition 218 process, we'll bring that to council for approval. So there is no changes proposed to the rates today, but separate from rates are fees or charges for these ancillary services that are not subject to Prop 218. We are proposing to increase those fees and charges that are not subject to Prop 218 to the amount that Waste Management is charging the city. So we are proposing to eliminate the subsidy for a handful of fees, eliminate that subsidy, and so we'd be passing through the full cost to the residents. There is no change to the rates for refuse service. So these are voluntary charges like extra pickup service or things like contamination or overage penalties, things like that that are not, Prop 218 are not rates for the refuse service. Thank you. If that's clear.
Any other comments? All right, open it up for public comment. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
Yes, ma'am. Joe Catalego.
Good evening. Joe Catalago with Waste Management. I'm just here to say thank you to the staff. We work really closely with staff from different departments, especially City Attorney's Office, Community Development Department, Environmental Services, and Utility Billing. We have monthly meetings, more meetings as needed, but garbage and recycling contracts are very complicated, very steep learning curve on a lot of these items, and we've had some staff transition on our side. I know city staff has had some transition too, but we've all been working together over the past year to get this piece together, and then all looking forward to implementing it going forward. So just wanted to say thank you to the staff. Looking forward to the future. So
Thank you, Joe.
Thank
Joe,
you.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
How many cities in the region do you have a contract with?
So our market area is what we call a market area. It's from Reno to Sacramento to Monterey out to Oakland, but our immediate one here that services West Sacramento is stationed in Woodland, and so it's just Yolo County and Winters and West Sac and then incorporated. So, but we have a lot.
You do?
Yeah, but for me, I manage the contracts just in Yolo County and Sacramento County.
I see.
That's
Okay, good, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Close the public, no more requests to speak?
We have no additional requests to speak on this item.
Okay, close the public comment, bringing it back to council for any questions. No questions?
No, not a question.
Sure.
I just want to make one quick remark, and it's a reiteration of something I said earlier. I've appreciated the service that Waste Management has provided our city. I appreciate the inserts that are often included in our monthly bills that instruct our community on how it is that we should be handling our refuse, recyclables, organics. I think that I've seen some really promising practices over the years, and what my remarks included earlier were the ways that we can help educate our community through our children, because they are oftentimes the motivators, because they have the free space in their minds to learn and absorb. As we heard even in public comment earlier, a young lady who spoke so highly about what her dreams were for our community. But our children are the interpreters past language barriers and cultural norms and a bunch of things. And oftentimes they can move the needle for households in our city. And so years ago, my son was at the Learning Ladder here in West Sacramento. We had a $500,000, I just remember the number figure, but I recall he came home with a song that I videotaped, and I can't get it out of my head, and I say it all the time. It was about recycling, and we were a recycling family already, so it just reinforced our already instituted behaviors. However, I could only imagine the impact that cute little song might have had on somebody else's home. I want to make sure that our, I think I've been very happy. I know that there's at least a few colleagues that are very happy with the service we get. Oftentimes, it's business as usual, and I really appreciate that. That's what you want. But keeping in communication with our residents if there's going to be a change in the pickup day and things like that, because oftentimes there'll be like a holiday and we don't even know about it, or we don't feel that, and then it's like, well, when do we get service? But, good partnerships and working together is the way that we change how the business as usual is in our city, and making sure that we keep our community clean, and change the trends of how it is that we toss away the things that are no longer in use to us. So thank you.
Okay, any other comments? With that, I'll accept a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Orozco moved, and Councilmember Alcala seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sulpicio Hull.
Aye.
Councilmember Alcala.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Early.
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero.
Aye. All right, this item is approved. Thank you so much for being here today. And to staff for all the hard work you helped us to get, this whole team to get us to where we're at. It's been a long time, so thank you. Next is a regular agenda, item 18, under Finance, Annual Reports of Fiscal Year 22-23, Sales Tax Transaction and Use Tax Measure Revenues and Expenditures Measures E, V, K, and N. And we have Finance Department Manager Becky Robertson doing our presentation today.
All right. Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Becky Robertson. I'm the finance manager with the finance department for the city. So over the last few years, while I've been a staff member with the city, we have worked on the annual tax measure reporting to expand the reporting to all 4 of our tax measures, where it used to just be on Measure K and Measure V, and not only to expand them, but to be able to present the revenues and expenditures in a short, easy to read format that also provides uniformity across how they're presented and publicly available. So we've constantly been kind of making updates to make it a little bit more clear and easy to understand for the public. So this year we made additional updates to the annual reports to present the revenues and expenditures for 22-23 and inception to date for each of the tax measures, to hopefully provide an even more readable format. And with that, we kind of thought it was an opportune time to provide a more detailed look into each of our tax measures, the revenues, the expenditures, while creating a document, so this presentation, that can also be publicly available on our website to provide more insight into the use of the tax measures than just the one-page attachment. All right, so before we kind of dive into the tax measures, I thought it would be helpful to provide a little bit of background on our sales tax measures. It's kind of cutting it off too, just because you won't be able to see everything. But looking at our sales taxes, the state of California has a state mandated minimum sales tax of 7.25%. Of that 7.25%, 5.5% goes to the state, 0.75% goes to the county, and then 1% actually comes back to the city. Now, our current sales tax rate is 8.25%, and that is because of 4 general sales tax measures that the voters have adopted for K, V, E, and N. So these general sales tax measures are also commonly known as transaction and use taxes, or TUTs. The 7.25%, that is the minimum for the state, is commonly known as the Bradley-Burns sales tax. All right, so as I mentioned, each of our tax measures are a general sales tax measure. And so with a general sales tax measure, that requires that voter adoption by 50% plus 1 vote in order for that tax measure to be approved. General sales tax measures are also legally general fund revenues and may be used for a variety of government services. However, with the City of West Sacramento, we've approved each of these tax measures with either an advisory measure with the tax measure or specific language in the ballot that showed what the purpose and intended use of these tax measure funds were going to be. Following that and following voter approval of the tax measure, Council has also formally adopted, either by resolution and or policy, committing these funds for specific purposes that commit these general sales tax measures for a very specific purpose and within a guideline. And it's also important to note that the City Council has always appropriated the use of these tax measure funds in accordance with the ballot language that was approved by the voters. All right, so we're going to start with Measure K, our very first tax measure. So Measure K, as in K for kids, was approved by the voters in 2002. It was imposed as a half-cent general sales tax measure with a quarter-cent that was ongoing, that was to be used for operations, and a quarter-cent that was specific to capital with a sunset of 10 years after adoption. This general sales tax measure was also accompanied with an advisory measure, Measure J, and followed by a council-adopted resolution identifying the eligible uses of this sales tax revenues. All right. Okay, so this slide shows inception through the end of our most audited fiscal year, which was June 30th of 2023. Measure J and the resolution identified categories and funding target percentages based off of the initial year one revenue projections, which was $2.5 million for the ongoing quarter cent for operations. So due to the growth in the tax base, council has appropriated a portion of the incremental revenue, so the revenue that's been received above that $2.5 million base, toward expenditures in each of the approved categories. So those approved categories include water, refuse, and lighting and landscape rate reductions, road maintenance and street sweeping, a new and expanded West Sacramento library, enhancement of police and fire protection, an extension of a regional light rail to service West Sacramento, and after-school programs, childcare, park safety, and enhancement of other parks and recreation services. So, to date, the Measure K fund has received revenues of just over $95 million. So of that $95 million, $79.8 million was revenues received from the from the transaction and use tax, so the actual Measure K revenues. The additional $15.4 million was revenues that were received from leveraging Measure K for grants, as well as transfers in from other funds to support some of the capital projects funded by Measure K. In addition to the expenses that are listed up here, the city has also set aside $2.9 million for the extension of the regional light rail. It's just not mentioned or shown in this chart because we have set it aside but haven't actually spent any of it yet. Total expenses to date are $89 million. So just looking at fiscal year 22-23 independently, Measure K reported, the Measure K fund reported revenues of $5.7 million. That includes $5.1 million of the actual Measure K tax revenues, and then a return of about $600,000. Due to a reduction in sales tax projections experienced over the last couple of years, we have, in that fiscal year, swapped some of the Measure K funding for some of our capital projects to a different funding source, so about $600,000 was returned back to Measure K. Total expenditures for 22-23 is $5 million, and the Measure K fund balance, available fund balance at the end of the fiscal year was $3.2 million. So looking at each category independently, up to 30% of the tax measure revenues were targeted for the reduction of water, refuse, and lighting and landscape assessments. Expenditures in 22-23 were about $800,000 and $13.6 million from inception to June 30th of last year. Key projects that were funded under this category include a low-income rate assistance program offering a reduction in residents' monthly water and refuse charges for eligible customers, as well as a subsidy to maintain a reduced lighting and landscape district assessment on property owners. And then looking at the road maintenance and street sweeping, up to 30% of the tax measure revenues were targeted for this category. Expenditures in 22-23 were $1.4 million and $36.8 million to date. Key projects funded under this category include doubling the number of street sweeping schedule compared to pre-Measure K, with the addition of 3 full-time positions to be able to accommodate that. Funding for pothole, surface crack repairs, and slurry seal projects, funding towards the West Capitol Road Rehabilitation Project and the Arterial Street Pavement Repair Project. Okay, for up to 15% of the tax measure revenues were targeted for a new expanded West Sacramento library. Expenditures for 22-23 were $300,000 and $4.8 million to date. Key projects funded under this category were to support an expanded number of hours on Sundays at the library, as well as additional programming and other services provided. Up to 15% of the tax measure revenues were intended for the enhancement of police and fire protection. Expenditures for fiscal year 22-23 were $1.3 million and $17.4 million to date. Key projects funded under this category include the staffing of 1 police officer, 2 sergeants, and 1 code enforcement officer that were used to create the problem-oriented policing team, also known as the POP team, that were dedicated to the West Capitol corridor, as well as the addition of 2 firefighters and their associated overtime costs for backfilling shifts due to staffing outages or leave for participating on strike teams. For our last category for Measure K, up to 10% of the tax measure revenues were planned for after-school, childcare, park safety, and enhancement of other parks and recreation services. Expenditures for 22-23 were $1.3 million and $15.9 million to date. Key projects funded under this category were expanding existing community services, the lease payments for the recreation center, contribution towards Bright Park Phase 2, shade structures in our parks, Club West and Senior Center improvements, as well as park playground equipment replacement and maintenance. On to our second tax measure. So this was Measure V. It was adopted by voters in 2008. However, it didn't actually start until 2013. And that is because Measure V was the continuation of the quarter-cent capital portion that was sunsetting after 10 years in Measure K. So when that ended in 2012, this picked up in 2013. It does have a sunset of 20 years and is set to expire in 2033. This tax measure was also accompanied by an advisory tax measure, Measure U, and followed by a council resolution identifying the eligible uses for revenues under this tax measure. So Measure U in the resolution identified the following spending categories for Measure V that included streetcar operations and flood protection improvements. This chart shows the cumulative revenues and expenditures for each of the categories through June 30th of 2023. Measure V the Measure V fund has raised $46.9 million. That includes $43.6 million from the Measure V tax revenues, as well as $3.2 million in transfers from other funds for capital projects, as well as leveraged grant funds, and has a total expenditures to date of $35.7 million. In addition to these expenses, the city has also set aside $500,000 for the extension of a regional light rail. Looking at 22-23, Measure V funds reported revenues of $5.7 million, which included $5.1 million in specific Measure V revenues and $0.6 million in other revenue. Total expenses were $6.1 million, and the Measure V fund had an ending available fund balance of $10.7 million. Key projects that were funded in 22-23 included the Transit Priority LRT BRT Readiness Plan, as well as the streetcar/light rail extension design. On to our third tax measure, that's going to be Measure E. This was another quarter-cent transaction and use tax approved by voters in 2016. This one has no sunset date. This did not include an advisory measure, and that is because the Measure E ballot itself explained the purpose and intended use of these tax measure funds. Council, following approval by voters, Council did approve the Measure E universal policy, which more specifically outlined what was included in the ballot measure. Okay, so the Measure E ballot and the Measure E universal policy identified categories and funding target amounts for the use of Measure E. The identified categories included road rehab, bicycle pedestrian trails, homelessness initiative, reducing impacts of homelessness, West Sacramento Home Run, smart city, and miscellaneous public safety. These charts show cumulative expenditures and revenues for each of the categories through June 30th, 2023. The Measure E fund has total revenues of $28.9 million. $25.9 million of that is specific to the transaction and use tax. The other $3 million is transfers in from other funds for capital and property acquisition, as well as grant funding. To date, there have been $27.2 million in expenditures. Looking at just fiscal year 22-23, the Measure E fund reported revenues of $7.5 million, which included $5 million in the transaction and use tax and $2.5 million in transfers in for the purchase of interim housing, as well as grant funding. Total expenditures for 22-23 were $8.9 million, and the fund had an available fund balance of $1.5 million. Starting with our road rehabilitation category, this has an annual funding target of $500,000. Expenditures for 22-23 were $2 million and $7.5 million inception to date. Key projects funded under this category include the Arterial Street Pavement Repair Project, the State Streets Pavement Repair Project, Neighborhood Pavement Preservation Program, a portion of the West Capitol Road Rehabilitation Program, as well as the Plug-in Partnership Project. For the bike and pedestrian trail category, the annual funding target is $600,000. Expenditures in 22-23 were about $400,000, with $2.2 million spent inception to date. Major projects funded under this category include the Southport Levee project, or Southport Levee Trailhead Project, the Barge Canal Trail Project, and Sycamore Trail Phase 3. For the Homelessness Initiative category, this has an annual funding target of $250,000. Expenditures in 22-23 were $500,000 and $4 million inception to date. The Reducing Community Impacts of Homelessness category has an annual funding target of $500,000. Expenditures for 22-23 were $4.2 million and $6 million inception to date. Key projects funded under this category include the Downtown Streets contract, interim housing, facilities, as well as repairs at those locations, homeless encampment abatement, 4 full-time staff, including a senior program manager, a program associate, and a senior park maintenance worker. For the West Sacramento Home Run category, this has an annual funding target of just over $1 million. Expenditures for 22-23 were $1.2 million and $5.2 million inception to date. Key projects funded under this category, including staffing of 4.5 full-time positions, including a business manager, program technician, and a data services manager. It also allows for contracts for 2 full-time early learning specialists, the Los Rios College Promise Tuition Program, preschool scholarships, and the Home Run Internship Program. Okay, and then our last couple of categories for Measure E, starting with the Smart City category. This has an annual funding target of $500,000. Expenditures for 22-23 were $400,000 and $1.9 million inception to date. Key projects funded under this category are a portion of the deputy city manager and a data manager positions, community engagement software, a broadband action plan, and other additional innovative technology. The other public safety category has an annual funding target of $100,000. Expenditures for 22-23 were about $84,000, with about $200,000 inception to date. Key projects funded under this category include the police department offering community and youth engagement events. All right, finishing with our very last tax measure, which is Measure N. This is our most recent tax measure. It is a 1/4 cent transaction and use tax approved by voters in 2018. This general sales tax measure also did not have an advisory measure, as the purpose and intended use was included in the Measure N ballot. Following adoption by voters, Council did approve a resolution adopting a Measure N policy guiding how the funds would be used. The Measure N ballot and the associated policy identify the categories and target funding percentages. The identified categories include public safety, inclusive economic development, and community investment. Switch to the next slide. There we go. To date, the Measure N fund has received $18.9 million in Measure E transaction and use tax revenues and has expenditures of $15.1 million. So looking at 22-23, Measure N reported revenues of $5.2 million, total expenditures of $8.2 million, and had an ending available fund balance of $3.8 million. Specifically looking at the public safety category, this category had a target funding percentage of 50% annually. Expenditures for 22-23 were $5.1 million and $10.3 million inception to date. Key projects funded under this category include funding contributions to the POA and PMA MOU costs, a comprehensive police department study on the operations and staffing, Fire Station 45 payoff, 2 full-time patrol community service officers, and a CALIA coordinator. The community investment category has a target funding percentage of 20%, but over the life of the tax measure. Expenditures for 22-23 were $3 million and $4.6 million inception to date. Key projects funded under this category include the Bright Park project, Memorial Park and Elkhorn Park improvements, a grant match for the Sac Avenue Complete Streets project, as well as a grant match to the Sidewalk and Transportation Equity Program, and a contribution to the Clarksburg Branch Trail Line. Finishing with the last category, which is the Inclusive Economic Development category. The target funding percentage over the life of this tax measure is 30%. Expenditures for 22-23 were $50,000 and $150,000 inception to date. Key projects funded under this category include a small business accelerator program and a contribution to Rock the Block. So I pulled this together. It's a summary across all of the tax measures from inception to June 30th of 2023, and how much money did we use of these tax measures for specific major categories. So looking at road maintenance and associated road projects, $54 million, $22 million on public safety, $10 million on the impacts of homelessness, $19.5 million on transit and transportation opportunities, as well as over $28 million on parks, childcare, and other parks and recreation improvements. So with that, we're continuously kind of making changes to these annual reports to make it so that it's easy to view, easy to digest, and be able to provide a lot of transparency and insight into how we are using our tax measures to make sure that the public knows that we are using these measures for the intended purpose. So further action into another additional layer that we're going to be adding for additional transparency on our tax measures. We'll start with our 23-24 annual comprehensive financial report. So because our tax measures are general sales tax measures, in our financial statements, which is a very long document for a single person to read, much less understand, all of our sales tax measures roll up into the general fund because they are considered a general sales tax. That leads to a lot of confusion because people will look at just the bottom line of how much money is available for the general fund, even though we mark them as committed in our financial statements. Not everybody knows what that means. And so to be able to provide additional insight, we are going to be adding another financial statement into our larger document that breaks down every fund that rolls up into the general fund and what each of those balances are. So it's very easy to see how much money is specifically for the general fund or the one-time general fund versus our reserves, our budget stabilization, and any of the tax measures, because all of those are considered general fund in our financial statements. So we will be starting that with this upcoming audit and the associated financial statements. So at this point, there is no action needed on this item, but I would love to answer any questions the council may have.
Questions among the council members?
I have a comment.
Sure, Councilmember Roscoe.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, I can go after public comment.
We can, but I'm just asking first before I go to, I'm happy to go to public comment now if you'd like. Sure. Okay, open it up for public comment. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
Pat Flint.
Welcome back, Pat.
I just want to thank you for a very thorough report. I appreciated it. I see where the money's going. I don't like where some of it's going. I don't like that some of it's been sitting, like the streetcar money, for 15 years or, up to 2024, when it can be used for other things. I see a lot of it was spent on the roads, but not recently. That money that was spent on the roads being repaired was during Oscar's time. He had those roads immaculate the whole time he was on the city council. So that's a little bit of a misconception. But again, thank you, staff. Thank you, Aaron, because you knew this is one of my pet peeves. It was very thorough, and I will go in and add up a few things and come back, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no additional requests to speak on this item.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Bringing it back to council. Yes, you have a comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First off, I applaud you for this presentation. I've, in all the years that I've received presentations like this, I don't know that I've ever seen it laid out in such a user-friendly fashion with such fantastic visuals. I think this is perfect for the public for consumption, and I echo public comment and some of the sentiments when it comes to this transparency. When we tell the voters that we are asking for an additional $0.25 to be used for a particular purpose, it's important for us to illustrate to them that that exactly is what it is that we're spending it for. In my tenure, I've only known the inception of Measure N and E, and I feel particularly protective of them. I don't want, I want to ensure that that what we told the voters we were going to use that money for has an absolute direct nexus to what it is that we will ultimately spend it on. And I'm looking back in memory lane here. I'm looking at how we used Measure E for Memorial Park, and I'm looking at some of the amenities and programs that, I mean, at least for me, I'm gravitating toward them because there were things that I worked on to bring to the city, like the Downtown Streets team and Rock the Block, and I appreciate the kids' home run, which is fantastic. I think that without these sales tax measures, we would struggle to find resources to fund these types of very important things like VIA that people rely upon. That's what makes West Sacramento so special. And so, our first job here is to ensure the public safety of our community. We have a general fund that pays for, public safety officers, but also flood control and other things that ensure that our community is as insulated as possible from, wrongdoing and keeping our residents, safe in where they live and their families. But all of the things that we're looking at here, whether that's Project Room Key and Home Key and improving the West Sac corridor, and then of course that 3-mile stretch of West Capitol Avenue that took so many of our resources, those wouldn't be possible had the voters, not approved these additional tax measures. And so I think out of years of seeing these types of presentations, this is probably one of my favorites, only because I got a chance to actually absorb it and see it and know where we are as we navigate for the future. And I agree. Roads are probably the largest concern out of my constituents and the members that I've spoken with. Sorry, not members, constituents that I've spoken with, and like the mayor said, lots of correspondence comes. It looks like we have multiple funds, but of course, roads are very, very expensive, and they have a tendency to get re-injured and need additional repair. So with that said, I appreciate your presentation. I also appreciate your inflection and intonation as you kept us occupied. Because, that was great. I was like watching a movie.
Thanks.
So, usually at late hours, well, it's not even that late, but normally when we're at this point in the agenda packet, it's struggle, but not tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm just going to say,
Councilmember O'Connell?
she said it all. It was great. so easy to understand here. And I know the public will be very pleased to have something like this. It will be on our website.
Yeah, so our admin is actually going to be out for the next couple days, but as her first priority to do Monday morning is to ensure that this is loaded on our tax measure page on the finance department on the website. So both the presentation and each of the annual reports.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you for the fantastic presentation. I appreciate the consistency of how information was shared with us, and the visuals were fantastic, and your knowledge of this just blows my mind. As the newest council member, I'm really honored to serve a city and with colleagues and staff that already have a culture of accountability and transparency. And for us to continue that and committing to folks what we're going to do, what we say we're going to do with the money. And so I just want to thank everybody who's been before me. And I would agree with Councilmember Roscoe that she does protect those tax measures because she brings them up. And very specifically what the letters are and what the money can be used for. And that's the culture that we have here in West Sacramento. And so thank you to the city manager and the staff and everybody who holds us so true to doing what we say we're going to do with the money. So thank you all of staff for your work on this. And thank you for the great presentation tonight.
Member Early, Mayor Pro Tem Early.
So, like everyone, thank you. I was smiling during your presentation because I genuinely enjoyed it. The visuals were great. I appreciated the graphics in and of themselves and just how they did a really good job of cleanly laying out where all the dollars are going. If there was feedback in addition to just the glowing reviews, I have those too, and thank you again. I would be curious because one, I was struck by how much money we have collected over the years and an amazing investment into our community. And so I was, quite frankly, appreciative and awestruck that we have been able to continue to maintain and get where we are now. I also had just the question of, housing here, public safety here, housing again here, public safety here, and just looking at the Gestalt and at the end, I think you did a really great job of summarizing that. And the question that I have is, and then the need, because there's a lot of money that's already being generated every single year towards all of these different things. And what would, in addition to this, be helpful is what's the unmet need?
Okay.
It's a lot of money. And again, very, very appreciative. Even something as simple as a street sweeper, right? It goes by my house, right? A couple of times a week, and I'm like, yep, thank you. Had no idea how much money, right, that it costs just to maintain the things that we really appreciate and probably to some degree take for granted. And so thank you for laying it out. I feel very, very lucky to live in a city that allows us to be able to do this. But I know there's still a lot of need that we have and require. And so I think that's the one piece that I would ask you to highlight.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Like my colleagues, I greatly appreciate this presentation. I think it does help us to see where our dollars are going. What I did see was, where some of the funding went, but how it also drew down federal funding. And I think it would be good for the public to know the millions, hundreds of millions of dollars we were able to draw down because we had this sales tax measure. And so that way they can see how it can be leveraged to bring in additional resources. When we take a look at homelessness, I think what I've experienced in working at the legislative level, other jurisdictions don't have the partnership that they do with their county because they don't have funding to do anything to address homelessness like we do. And the partnership has been because we have been able to work with the county who has grants, and their grant can match our sales tax revenue. And so that's how we can not just buy a motel It's a buy in a motel with the supportive services, with the behavioral health care. And those are dollars that you cannot put a value, I mean, just for the human quality, but it's hard to say, this person's gonna get, in addition to that, Medi-Cal. They're also gonna get health care coverage beyond what they probably would ever have received. Their quality of life is gonna improve and that they'll get employment. So just describing the human impact. Also, talking about our youth and the benefit of the home run program. They're going to go to college. They're going to be our future taxpayers. They're going to be our future business owners. They are going to be our future teachers, teaching our children. These are the career paths that programs like that provides with our sales tax revenue. So there's so much more, I think. There's a story. I think and I like seeing charts, love seeing charts and numbers. One of the things that I find most compelling to a legislator is the human story. And adding a human story to the impact of these dollars, I think helps go a long way. There's a way to, get a youth who can share how the home run program, or a parent who had access to childcare and was able to work and sustain their family. So many programs in here, homelessness, for example. I've chatted with one person who's now a commissioner on our transportation commission, Morris Banks, who I bumped into when PD was doing, just like these gatherings. And so I kept seeing Morris and asked him, so, who are you? He goes, oh, I live down the street in the Mercy housing. I just moved in. I said, oh, wow. So we got to chatting a lot more, and then I said, and then I would see him on the street. I'd pick him up. I'd take him to where he worked. We had more time to talk, and I've learned a lot from him. So I said, you gotta get appointed to the Transportation Commission, because you are trying to navigate your way through life from some really challenging situations. So Juarez, got on the Transportation Commission, and he's doing his part to contribute. I don't think you can really put all of that, but this is from our measure money, that we were able to lift somebody up and help them, even with the public transportation side of it. We're doing so much more than what I think people understand, and I get, that people see a sales tax as a regressive, impact on people's lives. It actually is not like that. I think people don't have any idea that the investment is going so much further, and that's the story I want to talk about to the community. I want to share with them, all the stories that I've seen, all the people's lives that I've, heard about. And that's one of the things that I've been talking to Aaron, and I think all of us, when we, show the home run program, put measure N or measure whatever E, put this, look at all these lives and their stories behind it. This is where the money, so we got to do more of that, more of what you did, but with the human story attached to it, because that, I think, is a much untold story here in this community. And I think we could do, we have some work cut out for us. I'm going to challenge all of us to, to do that. And so with that, even when we get like a federal funding source, this is what your money has drawn down. So I want more signs talking about what we're putting our money into. Having a PowerPoint's great, but I think putting it visibly where people are, bicycling, or where their children are receiving a letter saying that they got a grant thanks to Measure N, your sales tax dollars are contributing to your child's college education. Things like that. Constantly put our measures wherever we can put it, so that people know that this investment is for them. And it's not something we, hide. Yes, it is a general fund. Not everybody understands that. But when you can provide the human impact story, I think that goes a long way for our residents. And police and fire too, Oh, sure. Police and fire too, seeing the benefit of some long overdue, projects that we've been trying to get fixed. I don't know if it was in any of these measures, but it does free up funding in order for us to be able to use that, and that's another aspect of the story. So we have measure money to cover some projects, and others to, you know, to then get freed up to provide the funding we need to pay for, you know, a better salary or, you know, construction costs for their facilities and things like that throughout our city. So thank you so much for bringing to our attention what's going on through these measures, and I think Mayor Pro Tem Aaron? Oh, you have something to say? Is that what Aaron has something to say?
Just a closing comment, just to kind of respond to some of the comments the council made. First, I want to just say thank you to Becky for a great presentation and the finance team behind it. So first of all, on Vice Mayor Early mentioned it'd be great to have more information on the need. And this is kind of following up on previous direction the council gave at the second reading of the what became now Measure O, approval to move forward. You directed us to build a website that would provide information that sort of established why the council directed to put the ballot measure on there. So it will have information about some of the history, some of the current challenges the city's facing, and some of the opportunities that the council wants to address should that measure move forward and be passed. Obviously, this is very relevant information to telling that story, and so the website will be, it's being developed right now, it'll be out very soon. We're shooting for later this week, and don't hold me to that, but it'll be very soon. This information will be prominently displayed as part of that presentation, just for information for anyone who's out there that wants to understand the history of how the city has spent its tax dollars, but also from the council's perspective, why the need is there for additional funding through another transaction to use tax measure. So just wanted to make sure that you were connecting that back to the last meeting you had. And then second, on the signage, that's something that we definitely have taken to heart. We kind of dusted off the old logos that we had at one point for some of the other tax measures. I know our community relations team is working with our Public Works O&M team on developing those signs so that as we do projects, we'll have more prominent displays of the funding sources behind them. So look for that going forward. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And with that, we have next agenda item 19, under City Manager's Office, consideration of appointments to the Transportation, Mobility, and Infrastructure Commission.
Yes.
And our clerk will do a presentation. That's okay. Just introduction.
Becky, so sorry.
A little guidance here.
She's so good.
You are amazing too.
So item number 19 addresses two vacancies that we have on the Transportation, Mobility, and Infrastructure Commission. Earlier this year, we had one member and our alternate member resign from the commission. Both were moving out of the area. Dr. Hess, one of the members, his move was delayed, so he had asked to be considered for reappointment. The council has been provided the applications for the 4 applicants that we had on file from our previous recruitment, as well as 4 additional applications. Both of the members that resigned were residing in District 4.
Well, I need a little help. We have 2 vacancies or 1?
We have 2 vacancies.
Oh,
We have
okay.
1 vacancy as a full member, and the second vacancy is our alternate member.
Oh, okay, thank you.
May I make
Madam
a
Mayor?
sorry.
I'd like to also make a recommendation.
I realize that it's sort of heavy. District 1 has quite a few folks on there, but I do want to make a recommendation. At least I'd like the public to know about this individual. His name is Corey Cummings. Mr. Cummings has lived in West Sacramento for 15 years, and he just recently graduated from our Citizens Academy. And he's been very involved within the city of West Sacramento. He has made some notes here. He has been engaged with dialogue with neighbors and the city on the city election districting process, city and RCA events, the rivers levy maintenance issues, the river developer issues and negotiations, Rivers Phase 2, instrumental in Strand Apartments, and project impacts. He does not just peruse documents, he really dissects them, and I think it's that type of involvement and commitment that is exceptional and makes him an exceptional candidate to fill one of those vacancies. So I did want to recommend Mr. Cummings for one of the positions, whether it's an alternate position or one of the actual positions there.
Thank you. And with that, we have two, so we can take a one and then a two, and then and then we can take one vote at a time for each, and we'll take all the nominations and vote.
Thank you. First of all, I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this publicly. I think that is one of the bigger improvements that we've had over the years, is the opportunity to discuss the candidates and the qualities that they bring. I, too, am very impressed with Mr. Cummings. So thank you, Councilmember Alcala, for leading the discussion on his candidacy. Quite frankly, over the years of having the opportunity to review candidate applications, it's very unusual to receive one that is 6 pages long, that is also very rich with content and not just narrative. Quite frankly, this gentleman has who came he was a very active participant during the districting phase of our city several years back, and spoke about, with detail, about the precise map how it should be reflected in the Rivers community, where I know Councilmember Alcala resides. In this particular case, and in all, I think, commissions, District 2 has been unfortunately underrepresented. However, we're working on that, and I do appreciate that. On this particular commission, especially given some of the new changes facing our city, and I'm referring specifically to the incoming traffic that we're going to be experiencing with the Rivercat Stadium and our new MLB visitors from everywhere who are going to come and enjoy the national stage in our backyard. It's really important for somebody who has a wide breadth of experience. And as Councilmember Alcala mentioned, he was in the first and only class of our Citizens Academy. And he had perfect attendance during that time and very engaged in the process. But even more so, he works on prisons. And now, look, as a prosecutor who's worked in the prison system, I will tell you, those are very much like mini cities, because they have to facilitate all of the needs of the residents that reside therein, including their safety, their food, their mental health and medical, recreation, the list goes on, food services and circulation and whatnot. And someone with the depth and breadth of experience, I think, could be very well suited and a tremendous asset to the TMI Commission as an actual, not the alternate, but the full-fledged member. I think that would bring an absolute change in the way our commission, could really utilize his skills. He also was the board president, if it hadn't been mentioned before, for the Rivers Community Association, as well as on the commissions of the landscape committee and the operational committee, levy committee, social committee, legal committee. I mean, like, for crying out loud, also worked on the community facilities district and the capital improvement plan to fix deficiencies in landscape and irrigation infrastructure, in addition to advocating for a variety of other projects in and around the Rivers area and in District 1. So with that, I would make a nomination that Mr. Cummings be nominated for the full-time, not the alternate position, and represent our city.
Thank you.
You're doing great. Did you have a recommendation? Okay.
I can wait until, I want to give space for my colleagues.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would, echo my colleagues. I think Corey would be a great addition to the TMI Commission. His resume, agreed. I don't think we've seen a resume this comprehensive, and it's in the agenda package if anybody would like to look at it. But I really appreciate him attending and participating in the Community Academy, showing his commitment to the community. So I'm absolutely supportive of an appointment of Mr. Cummings. With that, I do think Pearson Roar is in District 2, not District 1. So I think we might have an error there. So
What is it?
Pearson, I believe he's in District 2, not District 1.
I thought Danny Therical was also in District 2, wasn't he?
Guys, applicants from current recruitment is on the back page.
So I'm just saying,
you're
he's
looking at
currently on the
previous.
commission.
Oh, got
So
it.
he's on in District
Currently on
2.
the commission, so he's, yeah.
Adding another District 1 representative would give us 3. We'd have 1 in District 4. I'm comfortable with those numbers. You know, we've advocated for representation in all, representation of all the districts. We're going to have to go through this process again early next year. And so if we have to right size, then I think that's the opportunity to do that. But with the new applicants that are in front of us, I think for the full appointment, Mr. Cummings would be a great addition.
Okay. So I'll add a couple of things. I appreciate Councilmember Sulpicio Hall naming that we're going to have to go through this at the beginning of the calendar year, regardless for new terms. I do hesitate because I harken back to our conversations about wanting things to be right-sized. And in particular with this, it's very, very heavy in that you have one representative from District 4, one representative from District 3, and then the rest representing in District 1 and then 1 for 2, and we'd be adding an additional for District 1. And so, but also appreciate the fact that this individual participated in our academy. And I think that does speak a lot to their dedication. I would advocate, in addition, for Brandon coming from District 3, at least for the alternate. What I see, at least in their application and resume, particularly regarding emergency services, I think that would be something that would be relevant and pertinent to this particular commission as well. And I do also think that it would help add at least some level of balance as we're looking at Districts 3 and 4 not necessarily being as represented on this commission. Knowing, again, I'll keep reiterating that we are going to, at the beginning of this next calendar year, take a look at all of these and try to right-size them a little bit more, because there is some right-sizing that I think needs to happen.
Okay, thank you. I did have this print, so tiny, alternative recommendation for District 3, which is Patricia Carlos. Her background was what caught my eye was with the she have as far as her background. It's my glasses that are too small. With this tiny print on this. Previously worked for the California Air Resources Board and currently work at the California Energy Commission, special advisor to the Commissioner Monahan, who is the lead of transportation. And I felt that background was very helpful. And I did contact her and chatted with her. She is still very interested. But I really looked at all of the background. Her interest in transportation and infrastructure, related issues. You know, I know we have other recommendations here who have had the opportunity, and I will add that, you know, there may have been applicants who didn't make it through the vetting process. I didn't want to, she may have tried and asked her that. So they may have tried, but there was a very thorough vetting process to have the diversity and equal representation. But yeah, that was, you know, maybe as the alternate, a recommendation for that. But I think all of us at some point are okay with Corey Cummins if we want to make a motion.
I will make the motion. Yes.
Councilmember Alcala moved, Councilmember Roscoe seconded. We'll make him a regular member. And Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Did you get who made the motion? And okay, good.
It was Corey Cummins for the regular seat, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. Councilmember Sulpicio Hull?
Aye.
Councilmember Alcala?
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Early?
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero?
Aye. All right, Corey's in. And for the alternate?
I put forward and nominate Brandon from District 3 for the alternate.
You look up Gotta find his name. Oh, yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry, is worse a male or female?
I'm not
trying to
going to attribute pronouns. I didn't see any
No,
on
the
there.
reason I'm asking, we wanted to balance female and male.
I know, but
You know,
do they-
equity on the boards.
Do they put on there whether they are male or female? Okay, I'm not gonna.
Okay.
I'm not gonna do that.
And EPTEAM? Does anyone know EPTEAM?
No, I don't know.
We've mentioned
I
just
might
trying
know
to find
EPTEAM from-
equity with male and females on the board.
I
So
think
was
that
just trying to
I
find-
think that if that's something that we want to do, I agree with you that we should collect that demographic rather than based on
No,
folks' names.
I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out what our numbers are.
I think it's a great recommendation for future commission applications so that we can be more specific.
I don't know about that. I think we'll have to ask council for some advice just to make sure.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
To
Identifying
identify
pronouns.
individuals by gender as well.
Oh, identifying pronouns.
Identifying pronouns.
I would not recommend that we require people to identify a gender
Or a
on their
pronoun.
application.
Okay.
They could identify a preferred pronoun if that if that seems like a good idea. I just don't, I mean, I wouldn't recommend we ask them to identify a race or a gender.
No, the only reason I mentioned that is we talked about making certain that we have equity in terms of male, females on these boards. So I mentioned that.
No, and then that's a laudable goal. I would point out equity isn't always equal. What is equitable isn't always equal. So I don't know that you need to have exact numerics to be.
No, we don't have to.
Yeah.
But it's always a good thing to keep in mind.
Right.
Wasn't aware. Okay. Okay, so you have your vote, you have your request. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Madam Clerk, we have Mayor Pro Tem Early, who moved Brandon for, and Councilmember Roscoe, who seconded.
Councilmember Sulpicio Hull.
Aye.
Councilmember Ocala.
Aye.
Councilmember Roscoe.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Early.
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero.
Aye, all right. And to Patricia Carlos, I hope you reapply. I will keep you in mind for an appointment, which will be happening soon. I'll give her a call. She was equally qualified. And I do like to have opportunities for all of our representatives or community to participate.
I completely agree with you, Mayor, and I think that will be important as we're right-sizing at the beginning of the year to be able to have some more opportunities, particularly for folks from District 3 and District 4 to be represented on these commissions, including this one.
Right, our next item is item 20 under City Manager's Office, consideration of Resolution 24-75 approving recommendation to the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names to rename SQ Road and SQ Court pursuant to AB 2222. And we have our Deputy City Manager, John Robinson. Will you present?
Mr. Robinson, the mic's not on.
Got it, thank you. Yeah, so we are requesting this be a workshop, as I said. The purpose of the report is to request your discussion about potential replacement names for 2 streets in West Sacramento that need to be renamed pursuant to AB 2022, SQ Road and SQ Court. I'd like to provide some brief background before turning it over to the council for your discussion. In recent years, the SQ word has widely been recognized as a derogatory term that is offensive to Native Americans. Private entities such as the famous ski resort now known as Palisades Tahoe have taken the initiative to replace this word in their names. The federal government, through the Secretary of Interior, has initiated a process of removing these names from hundreds of federal places across the country. At the state level, AB 2022 requires state and local jurisdictions to remove the SQ word from their place names. As I mentioned, we have two streets in the city in the Bridgeway Lake subdivision that have this nomenclature on them. There are 42 single-family homes on those 2 streets. About a year ago, staff initiated an effort to rename the streets in advance of AB 22. At that time, we solicited and received a naming suggestion from the Yochadihi-Winton Nation and held 2 online community meetings with residents of the affected streets. The Yochadihi-Winton Nation considered the matter at their Cultural Affairs Committee and the Tribal Council, and they recommended the name Tebti, which means streams run together, in reference to the Sacramento and American River confluence near West Sacramento. In our online resident meetings at that time, which had about 5 participants each, they were fairly lightly attended. Attendees were almost uniformly in agreement with the need to rename the streets and the appropriateness of that, but they did express a variety of suggested alternate names such as Sonoma, Seneca, Mono Lake, Echo Lake, and Toluca. And the public comment that you've received for this meeting actually has some additional suggested names from residents as well. One thing there was also a consensus that the new name should be short and easy to pronounce. Ultimately, the city-initiated process that we began in 2023 had to be put on hold so that we could undertake the state-mandated street naming process, which overtook us. As part of the process leading to this meeting, staff reached out via letter, email, and phone calls to multiple local tribal organizations that were directed by the state. Those are listed in your staff report. Of those, the Yochadihi-Winton Nation is the only entity that submitted a replacement name, and they did reiterate their original suggestion of Tebti. Pursuant to the AB 22 process, the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names, or CAGN, is the entity that ultimately makes the decision about what the street name is, but they will take under consideration the council's recommendation. And I certainly cannot speak for them, but my sense from multiple conversations with their staff is that, provided that the name is respectful to Native Americans and underwent the process that is legally mandated, they will give a great deal of deference to the council's suggestion. So this is a meaningful exercise that we're involved in. All responses to CAGN are due by August 6th, and they're required to make their decision on replacement names no later than January 1st, 2025. And the council has the opportunity to select a primary name or a first choice name, and then 1 or more second choice names. So staff's recommendation is that the council make Tebti, the Yochadihi-Winton Nation's suggested name, its first choice, and then select from among the resident selected names as second or third, and so on. That's the end of my presentation. I'd be happy to respond to any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Bring it back to council for any questions or comments, and if not, I'll open it up. Go ahead.
Just really quickly, we did receive some emails, and one of the questions was, if there's a name change, who's going to pay for it? Question.
Yeah, we're not recommending any compensation happen. That's historically not been part of city street name changes that we've done in the past, and we would expect that any cost associated with this process should be very, very minimal. Changing names on checks, driver's license, things like that. There's no need to change property records. The county tracks those by APN, not address.
That's great, thank you. I just wanted to ask it because we received a few emails.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, you have a comment?
I don't have a question. I'm going to make a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
It's brief. Tonight, that's unusual for me tonight, but I just want to say I always have utmost respect, as I know my colleagues do as well, for the Yochadihi-Winton Nation and the feedback that they provide to our city and the partnerships that we've enjoyed. If they have put forth this name, I want to treat that with respect. We're not going to all agree as a city and as residents as to what the perfect name might be. But when we're talking about in some way addressing the ills of the name that has been displayed in that area for so long, I would only feel comfortable paying homage to the folks who have been directly wronged as a community and ask for the recommendations from that community. So first of all, I commend staff for reaching out and asking for that feedback, and I also want to honor the recommendation that came to us from that community. I'm sure there are many wonderful names out there, but if this is the recommendation, then I'd like to move the recommended action unless my colleagues have further discussion and or questions.
I thought this was a public workshop.
Yeah, we did request that this be held as a workshop this evening.
My apologies then.
Yeah.
Then
Okay.
in that case, I'd just like to express my support.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments? Okay, all right, well, we'll open it up for public comment. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
Yes, ma'am. Ryan Fields.
Thank you very much. Never been to one of these.
Welcome.
This
Well,
is,
yeah, welcome.
absolutely. It's, I appreciate all the listening and what you guys are taking into consideration, specifically the first thing with the AAPI. As a husband to a beautiful Filipino wife and a Filipino son, it's obviously my skin color is different, so listening to her and what she grew up with, it's pretty amazing to hear what she went through and then how that had affected her and how it still affects her, she raising our son. So it's pretty cool to do that. So thank you very much for doing that. My request is that I acknowledge the importance with the Native American tribes and the words and the names and what it all means, because we all have that idea and that understanding. My only request is that even if it is a Native American word, and I appreciate that, something that's easier to spell or say over the phone. Again, my name is Ryan. I can't tell you if you have any friends or relatives with the name Ryan or Brian. It's like an inside joke. Nobody really understands. If you say Ryan or Brian very fast, it's very hard for some people to understand that, and they get it mixed up. I have to use the phonetic alphabet a lot in order to say my last name, I-E-L-D-S. A lot of folks, I before E except after C. So I'm looking at our last names here, and I'm sure everybody's kind of gone through something similar to that. So my only request is that we would make it something short and easy to say and something that is easy to understand over the phone. As somebody that works on the phone all the time, I have to, I think it's, what is it? It's Tet-T? Is that Tet-T?
Teb-T.
Tep-T?
How do you pronounce it, John? Teb-T, T-E-B-T.
See what I mean? So we're it's hard for us to even understand and say the words. So again, if we had, I totally appreciate the Native American language, and if there's something else that I think I would appreciate it. I mean, it doesn't really matter to me too much. I just live on the street. It's just, I want to be able to have short conversations and make it easier to be able to talk to people and tell them where I live and being able to get packages delivered to my house. So that's it. But thank you very much. Appreciate everything you guys do. Thank you.
Tanya Kershaw.
I have the same opinion as Ryan. Yeah, gave you a few there. Sorry. One of my main objections to the name Tebti, other than the pronunciation and spelling potential problems, is the fact that in Bridgeway Lake community where we live, every single street is named after a lake, and there is no lake named Tebti. In our local portion, I'm not sure if this is true of all of what's classified as Bridgeway Lakes, everything is named after a California lake. So I wish that that would be considered. I would think that the tribe may be able to look at lakes and see if there may be something that falls into that category. But that was how we landed on Sonoma and Seneca, because they're both Native American words that are lake in California. And Solano was also on there, but we had more names initially, and then once it was whittled down to where we should be more sensitive to the tribes, that's when we came with those other names in the second meeting with the assistant city manager. So anyway, I hope you take that into consideration as more is discussed with the tribe. Thanks.
Bob Shaber.
Council members, I concur 100%. We need to change the name. There's no question about that. I do have an objection with an outside agency telling our city what the name's going to be. We have residents on the block that should be the ones deciding. If you look at the history of West Sacramento, all of our different areas, like the state streets, we all have a theme. We should stay with the theme, and I agree with her. Find a lake that would represent one of the tribes. But again, having an outside agency tell our city what the name's going to be, I don't think so. As far as the pronunciation of the name goes, in case of emergency, somebody's on a dispatch, try to tell them what street it's on. When you first call dispatch, you're going to get outside of our network somebody that's not familiar with West Sacramento. That could create a bit of a issue. So again, what happened to all the names of the folks that are living on the street that proposed names? With that, have a good night.
We have no additional requests to speak on this item.
All right, thank you. Bringing it back to council and Mr. Robinson. You said this is a workshop. What is it you need from us at this point, from this workshop?
Well, I want to make a couple, if I could respond quickly
Sure, go
to a
ahead.
couple of the comments. One, we did, for what it's worth, we did run the name TEBT by our public safety staff who are responsible for checking street names, and they did indicate that they did not perceive that it would cause a problem. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay.
And so with regard, in terms of what we're asking for in this meeting, if the council has any direction for staff, if you would like us to go back and conduct additional meetings with the residents, we have a little time to do that before July 17th, which would be the deadline for us to come back to you with an item for action. So that is something we could do if you have any direction along those lines. I would probably plan to do something that way anyway. If you have any discussion, any names on your minds that you would like considered in that context, we can do that. If you have preference for any of the names that have been mentioned tonight, any kind of input that you can provide that would inform those additional meetings with the community, that would be helpful. What I would like to do is try to go back and develop some kind of consensus among the residents on the street as far as the alternate names, because there are a number of them. Several of them were mentioned here, and there's others in your public comment document, and hopefully come back at the meeting of the 17th with a little more consensus from them around what their preferred names would be for your consideration at that time.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I just have one question. Who normally chooses the names for streets? We have a lot of different developments and stuff. Is it developers or?
Yeah, this is an unusual situation. So in a new subdivision, the developer would come with proposed street names, and as part of the review of that development, staff would go through them, and it would be part of their map, essentially, as part of their planning review. In this particular instance, this is very unique because the state has instituted a piece of legislation that gave the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names the final authority to choose these names. And my sense, again, I don't want to speak on behalf of the Advisory Committee on Geographic Names, but my sense from their staff is that, this is a statewide bill, and my sense is that they are anticipating resistance in some locations. They're anticipating jurisdictions that might come up with facetious names to try and just not take the process seriously, or jurisdictions that might come up with no name and think they can just kind of sneak through the process. So the legislation was crafted in such a way that if a jurisdiction does not provide a name, the state has the authority to impose one. But their intent is to give deference to the local jurisdictions that do take the process seriously and engage with the residents and the tribes and try and come up with a serious response to this.
Thank you, John. One more question. What does TEBT mean?
Streams come together. So it's a reference to the American and Sacramento rivers
Flow together? Flow
Not a
together.
lake, but a stream,
Okay,
yeah.
sure.
I'm just reading.
Well, hey, I wrote it. It's there,
Okay.
it's good.
I ask these questions because I like people who are watching.
Yes, thank you.
To understand. And I think it's a great idea, though, to get a little more input from the residents also. Keep in the league with that, but I think it's appropriate, so appropriate. You mentioned some of the other streets were named after California lakes that were named after Native American, right? Yeah. And who knows, maybe folks agree it's a great name, but it would be great to get a little more input.
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. When you were working with Yochidehi, did you maybe reference or ask about potential, whether it be lakes or other geographic locations that, again, currently it sounds like, or at least either all or some of them are named there?
I did mention that. My sense is that the streams flow together is an attempt to kind of it's like a body of water. I think they were trying to get to a similar place, but also the tribe took this process very seriously. I mean, they have a whole cultural affairs committee that's set up to review matters of this type, and they deliberated and thought about it and came up with this. So I'm a little skittish about going back and asking a second time, for a do-over. But the point is well taken. All the points that have been made tonight are well taken, but just from a diplomatic standpoint or respect standpoint, I'm a little skittish to go back and say, well, thanks for that well thought out suggestion. Can we have another? So I'll just mention that, but I do think there was an attempt to reference the body of water or the lake theme with the streams come together, flow together reference.
What, just on, in that similar vein, what were sort of the parameters or what was the request? It would be nice if it hit these, or how did we approach it in regards to giving some guidance, if any?
I mean, at the time, I was aware from the discussions we had with residents that they preferred names that were short and easy to pronounce, and that the subdivision had a theme of lakes. So I did provide that information to them, and they provided a 5-letter, 2-syllable word that refers to streams flowing together. So to me, they got pretty close.
Got it. Thank you. I appreciate that context.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Councilmember.
I said I was being brief, but I think all of the differing perspectives have value and merit, and I just want to comment on the fact that it is a late hour, and residents felt strongly enough to be here tonight, to wait to the very, very end of the council to give their public comment, and that means a lot to me. I don't live on that street, nor I moved from the Bridgeway Lakes community back in 2014 to move to the State Streets, and I enjoy my community, and I know that there's value everywhere in our feedback. My name is Karina, spelled with a freaking Q. I've lived with it for almost 50 years, and my last name has exotic letters in it as well. And it's unfortunate that every time a teacher is calling roll, they stop at my name. And it had made me feel foreign and unusual, and I always hated that part of roll call. Tonight we had this AAPI. We spent a significant amount of time recognizing the uniqueness of a community that has traditionally been unseen. And in this particular case, we have a situation where, a community has been badgered, unfortunately, by the traditions of our nation, and referring to them as savages, or using a tomahawk dance and redskins, and I don't want to repeat those awful words, but this is a relic of a past that we've outgrown, and we are looking toward embracing the uniqueness and beauty of our very diverse community. And so if I were 15 years old and you'd asked me, would you like to change the spelling of your name? I would have been the first in line, and I would have said, I hate that I get called Quimbia, or whatever it is that you look at when you see my last name and my first name. And even yesterday, I allowed somebody to introduce me in front of a very large group of people, and they said, someone I know very well, Mrs. Orozco. Well, that's not right either, and I just took it. But the beauty and power of embracing it, and I don't know that I feel like we're being told. I think we ask for a suggestion, and I take that gently. I look at it as almost like as an opportunity, and I'm not the end all be all. This is just a workshop. We're all talking it through, right? But it's all in the way we frame the consideration. If we're being told that this is a name, of course we want, well, wait a sec. What about what I feel? But if we're thinking, well, this is a very unique opportunity for us to embrace the beauty and uniqueness of a community's recommendation to us. And yeah, it might not be the
I'm
lake.
sorry, there's no, I'm sorry, ma'am, you cannot speak at this time. It's okay.
I'm only one voice, and I'm not the voice, right? I'm just elected to give my thoughts on things. I find that it could be argued, if we wanted, that this, merging of two waters could be much like another body of water. It might not be the lake. Again, I just want to look at it in the way where if we rejected the things that are unfamiliar to us because they're hard to pronounce, or because we have some sense of, because I look at it and it is something I've never seen before, but I'm not mad at it. I feel like it's an opportunity to explain to our children the beauty of a name that they might not have been exposed to, and to say, and this is a community that has asked for it. So regardless of where the name lands, I just want to represent that, I take pride and honor in my name. and I will spell it out to every single person from the rooftop, because I think it uniquely represents the lineage where I came from. And you can call me Q, you can call me Karina, you can call me Orozco. I know who I am and I know who I love. And so I revisit the conversation because I think it is that important, and we uniquely have this opportunity to reshape what it looks like in our city to embrace what might be different.
Sure.
I don't know if you want to wait till the end. or
No.
I can go.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you for being here tonight and for sticking around till the end of the meeting. I'm taking in a lot right now. But the first thing I think about is our land dedication that we start our meeting with. And how that those are not just words. It's what we believe, and how we show that is through policy. And that is our job as a policy-making body. As we're having this conversation, I think about the families who immigrated to America and were forced to change their name because it was difficult to pronounce or somebody didn't like it. I think about the wonderful women who do my nails at Palladio that have Americanized their names so that they can fit in. I think about our AAPI resolution earlier, and we talked about being invisible. And all of that is informing my decision to truly respect the feedback and insight from Yocha Dehe on the name Tebti. I think it's a beautiful name. I think it's easy to say. I think it's easy to spell. I don't live on that street. I don't know what it would look like if we allowed everybody to name their streets. You asked for feedback. I'm comfortable with the name Tebti. One of the other names was Sonoma. And so if you needed a second recommendation from me, Sonoma would be number 2. But I would love to make everybody happy who lives on that street, but I really want to stick to when we open the meeting with our land dedication and what we represent and what is important. If I had it in front of us, I'd read part of it, but paying homage and representing, respecting the Native people. And I do respect and thank Yocha Dehe for the time that they put into this, and do think that their recommendation of Tebti is a beautiful way to honor the Patwin people of our land.
Everybody done? Okay. So I've been in touch with Yocha Dehe while we're sitting here, getting some guidance myself, because I feel like we needed it. Sensitive to the one tribal community that responded among the ones that are listed here, but also sensitive to our residents who have to, accept the decision. And it looks like it's a combination of both. It's not just one or the other. I know we want to be respectful. It's a combination of both, and you're here tonight. You received a letter, I think. We were informed. And I wouldn't mind sitting in the room with you. When that happens, you can let us know. We can't sit as a quorum, so only like if you want to have 2 separate meetings. If we have more than one council member, I'd be happy to sit, because this is really a real big deal for you. And I'd like to make sure that we take the best approach moving forward. And I got an agreement that would be fine, by the way.
So what's the right,
I just want to make sure I understand what the next steps are.
Oh, we were just
Madam Mayor.
giving, this is being a workshop, just giving staff guidance.
And I just wanted to make sure I understood the guidance that you were suggesting.
Having a
just so-
meeting with both Yocha Dehe and the residents together. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it'll be, so my guidance will be the residents and Yocha Dehe together, because I get a sense that they did respond, but I'm not sure if, it seems like you were given the name and then you're responding. I just want everybody in the room together, so they can explain why this is important. And then, okay. And go
And
ahead.
since it's in my district, I would love to attend.
Okay.
Right? Okay, you see me, Ryan/Brian.
And I just want to thank the resident who brought this to my attention. The name of the road a while back when I brought it to Aaron. And this prompted where we already had statutory requirement to change this. And, so we were, I think it was on track or something, but it was still a resident who said, hey, we got to do something about this. It's not right.
Okay, so can I take that then as the council's direction to do a couple more workshops and have the Yochidehi and the residents, and do 2 so I can invite council members if you wish?
Can you let us know
2
which
is not a quorum,
representative?
so if it's just us 2,
We need to
you're
know
good.
who at Yochidehi we're talking to.
Omar Carrillo.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's yeah. If that's the council's direction, I can absolutely do that before the next meeting.
Sounds good.
And I don't think you need a couple meetings because it would just be Madam Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem /
Okay.
the district. So that's 2, so you should be good.
Yeah, if I can get away with 1, that would be even that much
A lot
easier.
easier, yeah.
I'm here to help you out, sir.
Appreciate it. Okay,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for your diligence on this, and changing it to a workshop.
Thanks, Ryan.
Have a good night. Next item on the agenda is item 21, under City Manager's Office consideration of updates to the publicly available pay schedule for fiscal year 24-25 and senior human, Amanda Berlin.
It's me. It's a short one.
I've seen Caitlin sitting patiently in the back.
I told her she's off the hook.
You're off the hook. All right.
Because I moved it to regular. So the item before you tonight is just consideration of the proposed update to the salary schedule, which includes the previously approved salary increases for various employee groups, which are scheduled for fiscal year 24-25. As council has previously approved the salary increases included in this update to the salary schedule, normally this item would go on consent, but because the item contains salary and benefit changes for department heads, the Brown Act requires an oral report summarizing the recommended changes prior to the council taking final action on the item. So in this case, the updated salary schedule before you reflects the previously approved 3% general salary increase for the department heads, among the other previously approved salary increases for fiscal year 24-25. So that concludes my presentation. Let me know if you have questions.
Any questions? Yeah. Comments? Any public comment, Madam Clerk?
We have no request to speak on this item.
All right. Close the public comment. Bring it back to council for either comments, questions, or a motion. Move.
Early seconds.
Okay, Councilmember Orozco moved. Mayor Pro Tem Early seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sulpicio Hull.
Aye.
Councilmember Alcala.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Early.
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero.
Aye. All right, this item is approved. Thank you, Amanda and Caitlin. Next, we will go to General Administration Function Part 2. Do we have any reports from council assignments? Yes, Councilmember Orozco.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Really briefly, on May 22nd, 2024, the Sacramento Area Sewer District, Northern California Sanitation Agencies Financing Authority, along with the Central Contra Costa Sanitary District, did meet for a regular meeting. I'm going to actually give 2 reports from this particular body because I wasn't able to at the last meeting. My little boy was graduating, so I unfortunately was unable to be here to do so. But important to note that we also discussed at that meeting that the way we were going to do the sewer lifeline assistance program, rate assistance program, because as we know, the rates everywhere are rising. We have a variety of different issues, and it's kind of relevant actually considering the public comment that was given earlier today with the young lady who had mentioned about water reduction and making sure that we're conserving. But we have been spending a ton of money on a variety of different increased costs, including chlorine, and the sewer bill is going to go up. But in the same vein, there are communities much like West Sacramento and other lower income areas of both the city and county of Sacramento and outside agencies that have a good amount of people who fall short of the 200% of the federal poverty guidelines. So with that said, if we if we go to the Regional SAN website, I encourage all West Sac residents to do so and apply to the Sewer Lifeline Rate Assistance Program, because it can assist our most needy residents in lowering that bill. That would include, I mean, it's a little bit more difficult for like mobile home parks and places where there's, someone else who pays that bill, because it has to be somebody who directly pays at this juncture. But I think they're going to try and work around and try to find innovative ways to get to these populations. In addition, we had a meeting on June 12th, 2024. A very short meeting. The biggest thing on that date was a Harvest Water Program quarterly report from January 1st through March 31st. And we received a full presentation on all the unique opportunities that the Harvest Water Program is doing. For further information, I'd be happy to share the agenda and the packet with my colleagues and members of the community. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Roscoe, any other?
Yeah, quick update.
Yes.
On June 18th, the YOLO Sub-Basin Groundwater Agency Finance Committee met. We are looking, we've just recently started the process of examining the assessment structure for the sub-basin. And so this will be multiple meetings, but a lot of conversation about what property owners are paying for our groundwater management and our SGMA requirements. I've been chatting with the city manager to keep an eye on City of West Sacramento rates that the city itself pays. It's in our budget. It's not something that our residents pay. And when we get to a point that there's a more significant update of what the assessment structure looks like, I can share that with everyone.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I was going to report, but I can't seem to open my report here. So, but if it's okay, I would like to mention something that's happening in my district. Thank you. So I've mentioned this before, the San Pedro Festival. I think it's their 102nd, I think, annual festival this year. Is going on this weekend on Saturday and Sunday, and it's a really fabulous event celebrating Portuguese culture. So I encourage everyone to attend. They have great food, music, and the second event is the Fix-It Cafe, and that is going to be taking place at the Broderick Bright Community Center from 9 to 12. Annie Durst has done such a great job of getting some incredible people who know how to fix bikes, know how to fix computers, and they show you how to sew. It's a wonderful opportunity to talk about sustainability. They teach you all about it there. So I encourage everyone to attend. And one more thing. I went to the bank today, and the young woman there, she knows I'm a city council member, and she said, "I'm so excited. The VIA's back up again, the VIA app." And I said, "Oh, that's great." She says, "I take it every day." And I'll just tell you, it's out in Southport because I bank with, no, I won't say who I bank with. But anyway, she was, she was really happy because she says she uses it all the time, and the app's finally up. So just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. And I just want to highlight that on July 19th from 1 to 3:30, the League of Cities Sacramento Valley Division will be meeting in Elk Grove, in our sister city, and Mayor Bobby Singh will be included. Presentation, there's always a topic, is going to be police hiring and recruitment, and we'll have Reading Police Administration Captain Chris Myrnos, and I believe there is the Recruitment and Retention Elk Grove Police Lieutenant Carlos Vina will be presenting as that topic of interest. And yes, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I was waiting. I don't mind.
Waving, I'm next.
I'm good. Okay, so on June 6th, I had the Transportation Committee meeting for SACOG, in which we were talking about the blueprint, actually, and what were some of the allocation numbers in regards to plans for both housing as well as jobs associated with that housing moving forward. And so The Transportation Committee did recommend staff's assessment and evaluation that did move on to the SACOG full board. We took up that vote actually on June 20th, in which we got a chance to actually visit Yuba and Sutter as well, and got to take a tour of what a mobility hub would look like, not just maybe a traditional one that you would think about in an urban area, but what would it look like in a more rural or small town area. And it was actually really, really cool to actually pull up and be able to see a parking lot actually activated with potential games, and then you had an area for where you could maybe park your scooter or your bike, or be waiting for them what would be microtransit, potentially having a mobile library there. And so what a mobility hub could look like, again, in a community that maybe we don't normally think of. In addition to that, we actually did vote and move forward some of those recommendations in regards to what will hopefully eventually go into the blueprint. So that was a really, really great meeting. On June 10th, I had the YOLO Transportation District meeting, in which we did approve a preliminary budget for transportation. What was really eye-opening for me was some of the dollars that potentially are supposed to be coming to West Sacramento, that because of one-time money, we actually hadn't necessarily been using at the county level. And so we actually did end up approving some additions and expansions to routes in West Sacramento for public transportation, both in Broderick and Bright, as well actually in Southport. And so really excited about being able to bring back some of those routes that were taken away at the height of COVID. And I also look forward, and I've been working with Andrea and her team on what are some additional transportation needs in our city that potentially we could be tapping YOLO Transportation District, YTD, to be able to fulfill, particularly knowing that there are potentially some dollars that should be coming to West Sacramento and an opportunity there.
Thank you. Any council updates? Sorry, council calendar updates?
No report.
City manager report?
Nothing's done, thank you.
City attorney, city manager report? Would it be the website being posted Monday?
I prefer not to put an exact date on it, but just to reiterate that it's close to being ready. We're working on sort of merging some of the information you saw tonight with it, but it'll be very soon. I would say definitely within a week.
Okay. City attorney report?
Nothing to report.
No staff direction. And future agenda items. And with that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Councilmember who said? Councilmember Orozco moved, and Councilmember Alcala seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sulpicio Hull. Councilmember Alcala.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Early.
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned.